What's up? Ghost Fictions is here, and we're back again. This is a story where Izuku was a delinquent and had a healing quirk. Midoriya Izuku has a healing factor quirk. This can make any wound on his body heal faster than normal. But because of this power, Izuku slowly ended up on the path to delinquency. As a teenager, after nearly losing his mother, Izuku vowed to change his ways. It was then that young Midoriya Izuku set himself on the road to becoming a hero. But before we start, please consider subscribe to the channel and give this video a like. Don't forget to check the description for more informations. Now, let's get into the story. One day at Aldera Junior High, in Midoriya Izuku's class, we see a blonde-haired teacher discussing about future career plans for the students. He had in his hands a stack of papers. "Since you're all third years, it's time for you to think seriously about your future," the teacher said. "I'll pass handouts for your future career plans now, but you're all pretty much planning to get into the hero course, right?" The teacher excitedly as he simply tossed the career plan handouts into the air with no disregard whatsoever. The classroom then erupted into a round of cheers and a weirdly awesome display of different quirks from each of the students. Yes, you all have wonderful quirks. But using your powers at school is against the rules." Midoriya Izuku, a young boy with dark green hair, had his head resting on his arm while the boy was lazily looking out the window. Izuku was tired, as in always because of his martial arts training. Izuku was lucky that Aldera Junior High had both a karate and judo club. Because of the nature of his healing quirk, the boy found it easy to learn the fighting styles without having to worry about his body sustaining too much damage. "Sensei." The sound of a particular voice brought Izuku out of his daydream. "Hacken, you asshole, don't start this again," Izuku thought to himself with a smirk. "Don't lump us all in the same group. I'm not gonna be stuck at the bottom with the rest of these rejects," said a blonde-haired boy who had his feet resting on his desk while his head was slouched back. The young boy is Bakugo Katsuki, one of Aldera High's best students. The rest of the students suddenly erupted into a chorus of complaints against the Asian blonde. "That was uncalled for, Katsuki." Yeah. "You all should shut up like the extras you are," Katsuki said with a mocking smirk. "Oh, if I remember correctly, you want to go to UA High, right, Bakugo-kun?" the teacher said. The blonde smirk turned into a full grin. "That national school. It was in the top 0.2% this year, you know. Their acceptance rate is always really low too." The students were mostly shocked and in awe that Katsuki wanted to enroll in the best hero course offering school in Japan. Izuku, however, just laughed silently to himself. He had planned to enroll in the same school after all. "That's exactly why you guys are just extras," Katsuki said as he jumped on top of his desk. "I aced the mock test. I'm the only one at this school who could possibly get into UA. I'll definitely surpass All Might and become the next #1 hero. I'll get my name written down on the list of top earners. But that also reminds me, Bakugo-kun, you came in second in the mock test," the teacher said, causing Katsuki to almost fall from his desk. "I forgot to announce that Midoriya got the best score. Also, aren't you planning to get into UA as well, Midoriya-kun?" "No way," the students yelled as they heard the resident bad boy had gotten first best score in the UA mock test. To rub it into Katsuki's face, he even started laughing. "Haha, that's right, I even finished 15 minutes early," Izuku said as he smirked at the blonde-haired friend. "Who's the extra now, Bakahatsu?" Katsuki jumped down from his desk and stomped over to Izuku's desk. "Oi, Deku," Katsuki said in dangerously soft tone. The students gulped in slight fear. It was one thing that the resident hothead and resident bad boy were in the same class them, but it was another thing when they'd rub off of one another. It was very rare to see these two guys fight. There had been rumors going around that they were mortal enemies outside school and caused trouble wherever they went. Because of Izuku's healing quirk, Katsuki couldn't hurt him. And also because of their bad attitudes, they were always thought to have rubbed each other the wrong way. Katsuki glared down at Izuku, and the greenette glared back. "Bastard," Katsuki said with a smile as he pulled Izuku into a headlock and started giving him a noogie. "Why didn't you tell me you took the mock test, you asshole? I thought you didn't want to get into UA." Izuku laughed as he playfully pushed Katsuki off. "I was gonna surprise you, but whatever. At least you know now." The two then shared a bro fist bump and laughed it off. This left the class in utter silence. "So that's how it is. They're actually friends. Didn't see that one coming. Phew, at least they didn't start a fight." Midoriya Izuku is a bad boy. His behavior can be seen as less than pleasant at times, but he has his strong points. He had a violent nature brought upon by his healing quirk. The fact that he can take a hit and recover from it was mostly the reason our young protagonist is the way he is now, albeit to a lesser extent. A few years ago, however, this attitude was much worse. At the age of 10, Izuku got into his first fight when a bully made fun of him because of his hero journals. The bully had taunted Izuku and even took the notebook from the kid and ripped it to shreds right in front of him. The bully had a quirk that allowed him to harden his clothes. And as you can guess, the boy was wearing gloves. In a fit of anger upon seeing his notebook, as well as his hard work, destroyed, Izuku handed his first punch. The bully was around 3 years older than Izuku, and this didn't sit well with him. The bully hit back by using his quirk. The punch hit Izuku's face directly and even drew blood through a large gash on Izuku's cheek. The bully had a look of triumph of his face upon seeing the blood, but was shocked when the blood started flowing back into the wound, which subsequently healed. The two then proceeded to exchange punch after punch. To the bully's dismay, he could feel himself getting weaker and more tired, while Izuku looked none too worse for wear. Getting one last punch, Izuku knocked out his bully. That was the start of Midoriya Izuku's path to delinquency. That first fight had lit a fire inside of Izuku. The adrenaline rush that he felt during the fight was almost intoxicating in a way, and this caused the boy to seek out fights from time to time on a weekly basis. The basis eventually grew from weekly to daily in just a year. Once he had turned 12, Izuku was a full-blown delinquent. He would cause and instigate fights wherever and whenever he could, sometimes even trying to take on larger opponents. This eventually led him to even seek out fights against villains, since he grew bored of fighting teens who were held back because of quirk restriction laws. As you can imagine, over the course of 2 years, Izuku developed a knack for combat, but he didn't really have a style of fighting. He'd just punch, kick, or bite, whatever would do the job. In one particular fight against a villain who had a quirk which gave him the ability to turn his fingers into sharp points, Izuku had been detained by police after beating the villain. Although he was praised for helping to capture a villain, he was reprimanded for his reckless behavior. That day was also the day when his mother, Midoriya Izuku, learned of her son's delinquent-like behavior. She ended up scolding her child for his fights and recklessness. This went on for quite some time too. Izuku would get caught in a fight which he himself had started, and Izuku would scold the boy for fighting. That very night, the boy grew tired and yelled at his mother for her scolding. "Would you shut up?" Izuku yelled, much to the shock of his mother. "I have a healing quirk, it's not like they can hurt me or anything." "But Izuku, you shouldn't be out fighting in the first place," Izuku said with full-blown worry. "You already have a track record and the police have warned that if they catch you starting another fight, you'll be put on juvenile probation." "DCH, whatever," Izuku said impatiently. "I'm outta here." Izuku then ran out the door of the apartment. "Izuku, wait," Izuku yelled as she ran after her son. Izuku didn't know it then, but those 2 words would be the last words he'd ever hear his mother say for a long time. The following day, Izuku was on his knees crying by the side of a hospital bed. On that bed laid his mother, deep in a comatose state. Later the afternoon, after Izuku and Kitsuki were announced as UA applicants at Aldera Junior High, we can find the green-haired bad boy walking home from school. Along the way he walked through an underpass while reading and rifling through his notebook. The young boy was going over some notes he had recently taken of the new up-and-coming hero Kamui Woods and a new hero who suddenly made her debut, Mount Lady. It was a hobby of his to study and analyze heroes and their quirks. Since Izuku's quirk was a healing factor, the best he could do was to learn martial arts and other forms of fighting techniques to make for the lack of flashiness, as most quirks were sometimes described as. Izuku believed that since he could take a hit, he would have to hit twice as hard when it came to dealing with his opponents. But martial arts and hand-to-hand combat weren't the only things he could utilize in a fight. Izuku even took it upon himself to learn how to fight with weapons. His best weapons were the bow staff and a pair of nunchucks that he got from Hobby Shop. But despite all this, Izuku had developed a rather bad boy-like nature earlier in life, and it managed to stick. Although he wasn't a delinquent anymore, he still behaved as though he was one. As Izuku closed his notebook, he heard a faint gurgling sound. He then heard the sound of metal clanking, and suddenly a sludge-like monster came out from a nearby manhole. "Oh shit, what the hell are you?" Izuku said, taking a step back. "Good, a meat shield," the sludge villain yelled. "Just what I needed to get away from that guy." The sludge villain then lunged forward in an attempt to try and take Izuku hostage. The greenette tried to dodge, but he was caught and was inevitably smothered by the sludge villain. Thinking quickly, Izuku pulled out an electric stun baton from inside his uniform coat. "Didn't think I'd be using this thing today," Izuku thought as he tried to locate the baton switch. "This is gonna sting." The sludge villain laughed maniacally. "Don't worry kid, this'll only hurt for a few seconds. I never would have imagined that that guy would come here." "Damn right this is gonna hurt, but not for me you pile of sewage crap." Izuku managed to get his arm free. He then rammed his stun baton into the side of the sludge villain's liquid body. He then switched on the baton, and a few thousand volts of electricity coursed through his and the villain's body. The villain let out a garbled scream. Electricity had almost no effect on Izuku, but the jolt caused the sludge villain to explode. Izuku and the tunnel were splattered with green slime. Izuku had fallen to the ground, he was smoldering, and his body was twitching as a result of the electricity running through him, but the greenette was fine nonetheless. Getting up on his feet, Izuku looked around and noted that he and the tunnel were covered in sludge. "Great," Izuku said as he wiped the sludge from his face. "I'm covered in what can only amount to a shit-based quirk. But that was easy, mutation quirks that turn the body into a liquid mass can easily succumb to electricity. I can only assume that ice or extreme cold also has the same effects." While Izuku continued on with his mumbling, a rather tall and muscular blonde man popped out of the same manhole that the sludge villain came from not too long ago. The man looked at the scene with a mixture of confusion and awe. Awe, because the kid had taken care of the sludge villain, and confusion, because the kid was mumbling about water, ice, electricity and sludge. "Hey kid," the man called out, snapping Izuku out of his trance. "Did you do all this?" Izuku turned to face whoever called out to him, he intended to just brush the person off with a "yeah, so?" But to his utter surprise, the man just happened to be All Might. Izuku said in awe. "The No. 1 hero. He's really here." "That's right kid," All Might said. "I am here." "Oh man," Izuku thought. "He looks completely different in person." Izuku didn't know what to do. His hero, his personal hero, the reason why he himself wanted to be a hero, All Might was standing in front of him. "I'll just say kid, you did a fine job subduing this villain," All Might said. "I've been after this evildoer for a while now, I'd like to give you my thanks. And now, I should clean up this mess and take him to holding facility." All Might then pulled out 2 soda bottles from his side pockets. "Here, let me help," Izuku said as he reached out for the second bottle. "I like that helpful attitude of yours kid, here you go," All Might said, handing Izuku the bottle. After bottling the slime villain, All Might then autographed Izuku's notebook, much to the greenette's pleasure. "Alright then, I need to take this guy to the police," All Might said, patting bottles in his pockets. "See you again on the other side of the screen." All Might then did a squat and stretched his legs, preparing to jump off heroically. "Wait already?" Izuku asked. "Bros are constantly fighting enemies and time," All Might said. "Wait, I need to ask you something," Izuku thought as his mind raced back to his mother. "Well then," All Might said. He then jumped about several meters into air. "I'm counting on your continued support." "Wait." Feeling something on his left leg, All Might looked to see the young boy who helped him with the sludge villain earlier, clinging on for dear life. Hey, let go kid," All Might said with his hand on the kid's face, trying to push him off. "Your fanaticism is too much. I can't, we're way too high up, even though I have a healing quirk, I'd rather not test my limits right now," Izuku yelled as held on even tighter. "I might actually die if I fall from a height like this." All Might paused, realizing the mistake he almost made. "That's true. I need to ask you something All Might. It's really important." Seeing the look of determination on the boy's face made the No. 1 hero relent. "Alright, but we'll need to find a safe place to land, close your eyes and mouth." The boy did as he was told. The hero then saw a nearby high-rise and shifted his landing trajectory. All Might then coughed a little, a large drop of blood leaked out from the side of his mouth. As they landed on the building, Izuku got off and fell to his knees. I'm a complete idiot sometimes," the boy said shakily. That was intense. "But grief. If you talk to the people downstairs, I'm sure they'll let you down from here," All Might said, facing out into the town with his hands on his sides. Sorry, but I am seriously out of time. I really must go." Standing up, Izuku called out. "Wait, please. No. I cannot wait." "But..." Izuku then remembered the incident that had taken place a couple of years ago. The young boy saw his mother on a hospital bed, she had been hooked to several machines that were keeping her alive. "I'm sorry young man," the doctor told him that time. "But your mother has fallen into a coma, it's unlikely she'll wake up anytime soon." "Mom," Izuku said with tears in his eyes. "This is all my fault, I'm so sorry." Holding back the tears that were threatening to fall, Izuku straightened up. "My mother fell into a coma because of me. I was so stupid and reckless at the time. I just wanted to know." All Might stopped walking. "I just wanted to know, can a guy who put his own mother in the hospital still become a hero?" It was no use, tears were already falling down Izuku's face. All Might then turned to look at the young boy. "Because of me," Izuku said. "Because of how stupid and reckless I was being, because I got mad at her that one time, my mom, she..." "Your mother?" All Might asked. "I really want to become a hero, so I can atone for what I did. I want to show my mom, when she wakes up, that I can become a cool hero like you, someone who saves people with a fearless smile." Izuku was wiping tears from his eyes, but when he opened them, what he saw nearly scarred him for life. In front of Izuku was a skinny skeleton of man. "Who the hell are you?" Izuku yelled in shock as he fell backwards. "Wait, up until now, a fake. You're not All Might, you must be a fake. You're like a skeleton." "I'm All Might," the man said, suddenly spitting out blood. Izuku yelled in disbelief. "No way, that can't be you. You know how guys at the pool are always flexing their bodies and making poses?" All Might asked. "It's kinda like that." "What the hell kind of an explanation is that?" Izuku yelled. "It can't be, what happened to you? Why are you like this? You're All Might, right? The hero saves people with a fearless smile." All Might let out a sigh. "A fearless smile, huh?" He then sat on the ground. "Now that you've seen me like this, Shonen, I'd like to ask you to keep quiet about it. You can't say anything online either, even if by accident." "Alright," Izuku said. The boy was shocked by what he saw next. All Might then lifted up his shirt to reveal a horrific scar on his upper left abdomen. "I received this injury from an enemy's attack 5 years ago. Half my respiratory organs were destroyed and I lost my whole stomach. I became emaciated from countless repeated surgeries and the after effects. Because of all that, I'm now limited by time to the point where I can only maintain my buff form and do hero work for about 3 hours each day. 5 years ago," Izuku said as remembered back to that time. "That was when you fought against Toxic Chainsaw, wasn't it?" All Might nodded. The hero then went on to explain that despite the injury, he would still continue to work. He was the symbol of peace after all, and he would never be daunted by any evil. He explained that no matter what the cost, he would continue to be a light, a pillar of support that would keep evil at bay, and to be an inspiration to other heroes. "Pros are always risking their lives," All Might said. "If you're unsure of yourself, it's almost impossible to take up a hero's mantle. Doubts will always hinder you in the line of work." Izuku looked down at his feet. "My uncle, he told me the same thing, not word for word, but he told me that any doubt I have will turn against me in the end." "Your uncle is right," All Might said. "Now, you said that your mother was in a coma, would you care to elaborate further?" Izuku closed his eyes. "I was 12 years old at the time. We got into a fight one night. Because of my healing quirk I became really arrogant. I could take a hit and dish out twice as much force. Because of all that I got into fights with kids my age all the time. My mom would always tell me otherwise and scold me for what I did. One night I came back home from a really tough fight and my mom scolded me like usual. I got tired of the scolding that night and yelled back. I ran away and she ran after me." At this point Izuku was now in tears. "She followed me all the way to the street and when I tried to run across the road, she followed after me and Izuku clutched his chest. "She got hit by a car." All Might stood up and walked over to the young boy. He put his hand on the boy's shoulder. "Shonen," All Might said. "With one punch, I can level an entire city. At best or worst, I could sink an entire island with my strength. I used to think that no one should have that kind of power, but I soon learned to control it and I use this power every day to help those who are in need." Izuku looked at All Might. Despite his emaciated form, he still gave off a strong sense of justice and heroism. "You can be a great hero, especially with your healing quirk," All Might said. "I can't really say anything about the situation concerning your mother, but if you wish to atone for your sins in the past, take your mistake and use that as an example to do good." "But can I really become hero? I used to have track record of delinquency and vandalism," Izuku said, unable to look All Might in the eye. "Your past doesn't define your future. Like I said, Shonen, use what you have for good and to help those in need." Izuku stared down at the ground trying to think of what could do or say. He really wanted to become a hero, but he still had doubts. Izuku then noticed All Might's pockets. "Wait, where are the bottles?" "What?" All Might reacted and reached to feel his side pockets. To his horror, the bottles containing the sludge villain were gone. "They must have fallen out when you grabbed onto me." "But that was over the Tatooine shopping district," Izuku said, panicking. "Oh man, I'm really sorry, I didn't mean to." "It's alright, Shonen, I made sure to cap the bottles as tight as possible," All Might said with a smile. "I can just run over and collect the bottles, what could go wrong?" Boom. It was then that a loud explosion was heard some distance away. All Might and Izuku turned to see thick black smoke rising from the nearby shopping district. The two then looked back at each other and shared a look of horror. All Might and Izuku were running to the area where they saw the smoke. "Shit, I really messed up," Izuku said. "It's all my fault. If I hadn't grabbed onto you when you jumped, this wouldn't have happened." "No time for that now, Shonen," All Might said. "Let's just hope no one is in danger." When they arrived on the scene, a crowd of people had gathered and were talking about the several heroes who were trying to deal with the sludge villain. "Just as I thought, he managed to escape," All Might said as he coughed. "I just hope they can take control of the situation before it gets any worse." All Might's hope however was shattered when he heard that the villain had taken a hostage and was using the hostage's quirk to keep the heroes at bay. Izuku had joined the crown and even managed to push his way to the front. Trying to get a better look, he saw the heroes, Death Arms, Backdraft, and Kamui Woods, along with some other heroes he didn't fully recognize. From what he tell from the situation alone was that Death Arms couldn't use his full strength for fear of hurting hostage, Backdraft was too busy putting out nearby fires, and Kamui Woods was helping to evacuate any civilians caught inside the danger zone. But what Midoriya Izuku saw next caused him to freeze in horror. When he turned his eyes to the villain, he could faintly make out the hostage's blonde hair, but when he took a closer look, he was horrified to see that the hostage was none other than his best friend, Bakugo Kitsuki. The look that Kitsuki had on his face was one of despair. Izuku knew from his earlier encounter with the sludge villain that the villain was suffocating his friend, trying to forcibly enter his body through Kitsuki's mouth. When Izuku saw that look, something inside of him just snapped. "Hakken!" Izuku yelled as he dropped his bag and jumped into the fray, despite the other heroes calling for him to stop. "I nearly lost my mother that night, I'm not about to lose my best friend today." Izuku picked a nearby metal pipe on the way and analyzed the situation. Disorient your opponent, aim for any vital areas. After a quick analysis, Izuku focused on the villain's eyes. Raising his arms, Izuku swung the pipe in a sideward arc and managed to hit the sludge villain's eye. The villain roared in pain and loosened his grip on Kitsuki. Seeing his chance, Izuku dropped the pipe, began pulling away at the sludge. "Hold on, you bastard, I'll get you out." "Well, don't just talk about it, get me the hell out of this," Kitsuki yelled back. "Hold on," Izuku said. "Get a supernova ready." Kitsuki smirked as he clenched the muscles on his right arm. Once enough of his upper body had been freed, Kitsuki aimed his hand directly at the sludge villain. Die. A huge explosion erupted out of Kitsuki's hand, the force would have blown him away had it not been for his friend holding him back. The explosion however only blasted away half of the sludge villain, who, after recovering from the blast, raised a slimy arm in rage as he yelled. "You again. This time I'll just kill you brats." Kitsuki and Izuku braced for impact, but it never came. "Pathetic." All Might said. He held back the sludge villain's attack. "I really am pathetic, even though I encouraged you by saying you could become a hero. I am truly ashamed that I myself am not living up to the standards I instilled into you shonen." "All Might," the sludge villain yelled. "Pros like me are always risking their lives for a better cause." All Might yelled as he reared back his right arm. Detroit, smash. Once the aftermath of All Might's punch settled down, heroes, the police, and civilians alike just started in shock at the brute force of the No.1 hero. Kitsuki and Izuku, who were right there beside All Might, just stared in awe at their idol. Suddenly it started raining. "Rain? Don't tell me it's from the wind pressure just now." "Yeah, it must caused an updraft." Death Arms looked up at the clouds and stared at All Might. That punch, he made clouds. With just his fist he changed the weather. Despite his injury, the unyielding symbol of peace, All Might stood while the civilians chanted their praises. Sometime later the kids were checked for any injuries. Kitsuki had some minor cuts and bruises, but Izuku was relatively unharmed. He explained to the medics that had arrived on scene about his healing quirk. The pros then took their time praising Kitsuki for his amazing quirk. They praised Izuku for jumping to save his friend, but also admonished him for being so reckless. "That was really stupid of you to just jump in there, kid," Death Arm said to Izuku. "Even if you did have a healing quirk. But, hey, at least you saved your friend." Izuku looked at Kitsuki, who gave him a wry smile. The blonde shook his head and smacked Izuku upside his head. "Yeah, even if you tell this bonehead not to, he'd do it anyway." "Hey, at least this makes us even," Izuku said. All Might just watched the scene from where he stood. "That boy, he might just be what I was looking for. And that healing quirk of his, he wouldn't have to worry about the kickback. I hope you still want to become a hero, shonen." Later that afternoon, Izuku and Kitsuki were making their way home. "Man, that was awesome," Kitsuki said. "Being praised by heroes and getting to see All Might in action. On top of both of us getting into UA, this day couldn't get any better, right?" "Yeah," Izuku replied. Not counting nearly being suffocated to death by that slime, this day was awesome. After walking and talking for a while, the teens came to crossroads. "Well, I'm this way," Kitsuki said. "I better go, I don't want the old hag yelling at me again." "Yeah," Izuku said with a laugh. "See you tomorrow then." Once Kitsuki was outside, Izuku kept walking until, "I am here." Startled, Izuku fell backwards. "Hey All Might, what are you doing here? I thought you were swamped by the press." All Might let out a laugh. Getting away from them was a piece of cake. "Why?" "Because I am All Might." Izuku screamed when All Might deflated. Clutching his chest, Izuku couldn't help but yell. Couldn't you at least give a little warning before that happens? I'm too young to die of a heart attack. Wiping away the blood from his chin, All Might looked to Izuku smiled. Shonen, I knew you had it in you. Back there with the sludge villain, you displayed something that not many heroes possess. You were truly heroic. How can you say that? Izuku said as he looked away. Because of me, Kaken got hurt, you were nearly blamed for the villain attack, I got in the way of your work, and what's worse is that. That doesn't really matter right now, Shonen. All Might said as he stopped the boy from rambling. Because you ran in there with almost no regard for yourself, because you simply wanted to save your friend, you reminded me of what true heroism is. Because of what you did, I was able to act. Izuku raised his head and looked at All Might. Top heroes have stories about them that go back to as early as their high school days. All Might said. And most of those stories have one thing common. Their bodies moved before they even had a chance to think. As Izuku heard this, he was beginning to realize what All Might was trying to say. It was also at that moment he remembered the words his mother told him some years before the incident. You have a wonderful quirk, Izuku, and with it you'll become a wonderful hero as well. One day, I know you'll make me proud. But right now I'm already proud of you because I know you'll do great things in the future. Those words were then drowned out when Izuku won his first fist fight. He had developed a knack for fighting, and along the way he slowly became more and more arrogant to the point where he started disregarding his own mother's worry. That was true for you, too, wasn't it? Yeah. Izuku said as tears began falling down his face. Izuku always regretted that day when he saw his mother's lifeless body on ground. He regretted ever yelling at her, he regretted ignoring his mother's worry, he regretted his actions for so long, and for an equally long amount of time, he tried to do anything and everything make things better. That is why, Shonen. All Might said. I deem you worthy to inherit my power. Izuku raised his head. Wait, what? Izuku stared at the massive piles of trash that littered the Dagoba Municipal Beach, thinking back to what All Might said. Izuku didn't know whether to regret his decision or just accept it, and just as the hero said. The boy thought that this was impossible, but he'd done community service before. Izuku's uncle, who was teacher in martial arts, had taught him the value of doing things for others, even if you didn't receive anything else in return. What mattered was that you did something out of the goodness of your heart and not for the attention that followed. Cracking his knuckles, Izuku smirked. Alright, let's get this place cleaned up. And so began the next 10 hellish months of Midoriya Izuku's life. Despite the copious amounts of garbage and trash heaps littered on the beach, Izuku had managed to finish up earlier than expected. It was only 8 months in, and the beach was clean and free of any trash. Most of the remaining trash had been piled up at the upper viewing deck. All Might could only stare in amazement at the young 14-year-old boy who stood atop a pile of scrap screaming his lungs out. Hey, hey, hey. All Might looked out and stared at something that amazed him further. He even cleaned outside of where I told him to. Seriously? There's not even a speck of dust left. Seriously, he finished in only 8 months. More than perfectly. Oh my goodness. Izuku then jumped down and sat on a refrigerator. Hey, All Might, how's that for worthy to inherit your power? Good work, Midoriya Shonen. All Might said, giving the boy a thumbs up. You surprised me, you entertainer you. Teenagers are amazing. Look at this. As Izuku jumped down from his perch, All Might pulled out his phone, showed a picture of Izuku 8 months earlier. The picture showed a short young boy with a lean muscled body, struggling to move a large piece of trash. That's you, 8 months ago. All Might said. You did good. You really did. The mirage of it is finally just barely visible, but you certainly become a suitable vessel. I really thought it would take at least 10 months, but I can't. You actually forced your body so hard. Hey, huff with my healing. Izuku said as he tried to catch his breath. I can huff, tear my muscles apart without huff any worry. Izuku had his shirt hanging off his right shoulder. His body had grown increasingly more muscular. His pectorals, his abs, his biceps, and even his trapezius muscles on his shoulders had buffed up, giving him broader shoulders. He even managed to grow a little taller during his training regime. The boy previously stood 166 centimeters, 5'5", but now here he was standing at 179 centimeters, 5'8". It feels like I'm cheating though. Izuku said with a smile. You're doing all this for me, All Might, I'm too blessed. All Might let out a short laugh. Your humble attitude is wonderful, I just wish I could work on your bad boy habits. Well, never mind about that for now. All Might then plucked a single strand of his blonde hair. This is something I was once told. Something that you receive because you're lucky and something that you are given because you are recognized are different as essence. Take that to heart. This is power you earned because of your own effort. Izuku looked up to All Might, then down at his more muscular physique. He nodded his head in understanding. Now then. All Might said as he stretched out his hand with a strand of hair in between his thumb and index finger. Eat this. What the actual fuck? WWW what? Izuku grimaced. It doesn't really matter what it is as long you ingest some of my DNA. All Might said. Whoa. Izuku said, putting up his arms in defense. I'm not putting your hair in my mouth. It's too different from what is imagined. This isn't what I signed up for. I said it doesn't matter. All Might said defensively. Just eat the hair. Izuku yelled. All Might tried to force the hair down his throat. Get your follicles away from me. After some time, All Might managed to get Izuku to eat the strand of hair. I don't feel any different. Izuku said as he flexed his muscles. Did it work? And Bleck. Hair tastes sour. Why does hair taste sour? I imagine it did, but you probably know how the digestive system works, give it some time. All Might said. You can just go home now and take a rest, we'll start your training tomorrow. Izuku nodded his head and made his way over to his bag. You'll do great one day, Shonen, you actually managed to shave 2 entire months off my training plan. All Might thought to himself as he stared out at the sunrise over the horizon. Closing his eyes, the pro hero thought back to when he first inherited One for All. He was able to use the quirk right of the bat. I wonder if his healing quirk can really take the kickback though. All Might was then interrupted from this musings when he heard a loud thump. He looked back and saw that Izuku had passed out next to a refrigerator. Letting out a laugh, All Might went over to check on the boy. I guess you really did push yourself too far, I should get you home, you deserve to rest after doing all this. The next 2 months would begin Izuku's training on how to properly utilize One for All. Izuku came back to the beach and was met with All Might in his true form. The bad boy already knew various forms of martial arts, learning from not only his uncle, but from the few dojos in the area that still taught martial arts to better a person's quirk or combat prowess. You're late, Shonen. All Might said. I appreciate that your uncle has been taking care of you this far, but you still need to work on your punctuality. Yeah, Izuku said, waving his hand. I'll get to that later, first I need to learn how to use the power you gave me. You're right. All Might said. All you have to do is clench your buttocks and yell this inside your heart. Smash. All Might yelled as he quickly shifted to muscle form and let loose a powerful shock wave that flew right over the open ocean. Izuku would have been awed by this display of All Might's power, but. You want me to clench? Izuku said with a blank emotion. My ass. I know Deku didn't really feel like much of a bad boy in this chapter, but you'll get to see more in the following chapters. Remember, he's trying to become a hero, so he won't necessarily be much of an ass. But you'll get to see that as we progress with the overall storyline. But for future chapters, here are some previews. Tenya was worried and very concerned for Izuku. The bad boy attitude was something the bespectacled boy couldn't stand. I mean, he already had to deal with Kitsuki. Following him home one day, Tenya saw Izuku get into a verbal argument with some teens from another school. I should stop this. Tenya thought. Even though he can fight, he really shouldn't be fighting like this though. It just goes against being a hero. One of the bigger kids got tired of the arguing and just grabbed Izuku by the collar of his uniform. Alright, I heard enough, you're supposed to be tough, but all I see is that you're all just talk. Oh really? Izuku smirked condescendingly, he then rammed his head into the large teen's forehead. The bigger teen didn't budge, however, his friends even started smirking and snickering. Healing quirk, huh? The large boy said, taking notice of the wound on the Izuku's forehead starting to close. That ain't gonna work. To Izuku's mild surprise, the guy's head and entire body had turned to stone. Izuku smirked again and channeled One for All at 25% into his forehead. Alright, try this one. Headbutt smash. Izuku rammed his forehead again, and this time the larger boy was flung several feet away. Alright pal. Izuku said as he grabbed the delinquent's hand. What's the big idea picking on these girls? Bruh, the delinquent growled as he turned to face who touched his hand. Who the hell do you? To the delinquent's shock, however, he was met with an enraged face, one that he never would have thought to run into again. Deku. Demon Izuku. Izuku let go of the guy's hand and glared at the delinquents. Yeah, it's me, now let me ask again. Michako, Mina, and Sayu could only watch in amazement as the 5 delinquents began shaking in fear for their lives. What's the big idea picking on these girls? Look, I appreciate the gestures, but why are you doing this for me? Izuku asked the beautiful young girl standing in front of him. I just wanted to repay the favor. The girl said. Favor? What favor? For when you saved me. The girl replied as she shyly tucked her jet black hair behind her ear. Remember that small girl? The one with short hair. The girl who was lost. Izuku cupped his chin and tapped his lips, trying to put his thoughts in order. It then dawned on him at that moment. Wait. He said, looking the girl up and down. That girl was you? That tiny runt of a girl was you? The girl smiled as a blush creeped up on her face. Yes, Deku-sama. Don't call me that. It's embarrassing enough as it is. Izuku yelled as he too started blushing. It was February 25, 3:30 p.m. Midoriya Izuku was pedaling his bike to a certain destination. For some time, Izuku had been going to the same place every afternoon, Musatafu General Hospital. His mother, ever since the incident, had been placed on life support. This was when Izuku was still 12 and a delinquent. 2 years later, the boy was now 14 years old and on his way to becoming a hero. We see Izuku as he greeted the nurses stationed at the front desk. He always said his hellos before making his way to his mother's hospital room. Izuku's polite nature was quite an improvement ever since he started training with All Might, although it could use some fine-tuning here and there. Inside a specially reserved hospital room, Midoriya Izuku was laid on a hospital bed. Several wires and tubes were attached to her body, monitoring her condition on a number of life support machines. The heart monitor machine by her bedside sounded a constant rhythm of beeps every few seconds. She was alive, but in a comatose state. Izuku hesitated for a while, but he eventually walked up to the bed and sat on a nearby chair. "Hey mom," Izuku said with a smile. "I'm finally doing it. I'll be taking the UA entrance exam tomorrow. I'll finally become a hero like I always wanted to when I was still a kid." Izuku looked down at his mother's expressionless face, hoping that she'd react somehow. A twitch even, something. He reached for his mother's hand and held it tight. "Well, I've been training really hard for the past 10 months. Izuku said, flexing his right arm. "But not just with Uncle Kijiro, I've also been training with a really great hero. I'm already proud of you because I know you'll do great things in the future. Mom, I promise, I'll become a great hero too one day and I'll make things up to you. You can count on that." Izuku stood up and leaned in to plant a small kiss on his mother's forehead. "I promise mom, I'll really make it up to you." February 26, 6 a.m. "Izuku-kun, are you ready for the exam?" Akatani Kijiro asked his nephew who was eating his third bowl of katsudon. Izuku nodded. "I could barely sleep at all last night. I feel so full of energy." Akatani Kijiro was a huge hulk of a man who stood 191 centimeters, 6'3", and he even had muscular build similar to that of All Might. Kijiro was a pro hero who taught martial arts to other heroes with relatively weak quirks as a way to compensate for their weakness. This wasn't an uncommon thing, since many pro heroes practiced martial arts and other forms of fighting styles to get an upper hand against a variety of villains. Kijiro is also the person who took on legal guardianship of Izuku after Inko went into a coma. The reason being is that Kijiro is Inko's closest living relative, a cousin from her father's side. Kijiro even took it upon himself to teach his nephew his own brand of martial arts. The boy was a really fast learner, and at times Kijiro found himself unable to keep up with Izuku's boundless energy. This was due to Izuku's healing abilities. Because of the healing factor, Izuku rarely need to rest after their sparring matches. If you're wondering about Midoriya's father, not much can be said about the man really. All we can know right now is that he works abroad to provide for Izuku's finances. Kijiro laughed as he finished his coffee. "Full of energy, even after your morning jog, after all the training you went through, I'm sure you'll make it." "Well, I'll be going now," the man said as he grabbed his coat and bike helmet. "Remember, I'll be gone for the week, so stay out of trouble. Please promise me that." Izuku stared down at the empty bowl in front of him. He then nodded his head. "I promise. Besides, I'm not the same as I used to be. I'm gonna be a great hero one day." Kijiro smiled. "Your mother will be so proud of you, she'd literally be crying a river." Izuku smiled at this, knowing how emotional his own mother was. As the green-haired young teen looked down at the table, he then heard the sound of the front door closing. As soon as his uncle had left, a tear ran down Izuku's face. "Mom, I promise." Standing up, Izuku walked into his room. He shed his tracksuit jacket and took one look at himself in the mirror. Although his muscular physique had reached its highest peak right now, his height continued to increase. After only 1 month of training with All Might, his height rose up from 179 centimeters, 5'8", to 182 centimeters, 5'10". But that must have also been his peak in height, since he didn't grow any more after another month of training. "I guess I've hit my peak for now. I'll just cut back on training for a while. I'm pretty sure that's a good idea," Izuku said as he flexed his muscles for a bit. All Might himself said I could take a breather. "But I should get ready for the exam." Izuku was very inspired by heroes at such a young age, especially when he saw the video of All Might saving all those people. He'd watch and re-watch the video over and over again without ever getting bored. His mother saw this as a great way for the young boy to grow up. Since her son was so enamored with heroism, she believed that he'd probably try for heroics in the near future. So, Inko did as any mother would do, she raised her son by encouraging him to follow the path of a hero. This was a common thing for most parents in this time frame. The profession of hero was widely celebrated and very much encouraged. A vast majority of middle school students would always gravitate towards the path of a hero. However, much to the dismay of Midoriya Izuku, her son's attitude of heroism started straying. Rather than displaying a kind and gentle nature like he used to, Izuku's behavior slowly started changing into that of a delinquent. Although the boy had it in his mind to pursue heroics, he began neglecting the kind gentleness that his mother had raised him with. Gone was the precious young boy with a warm smile, the boy whose eyes sparkled to life whenever heroes were mentioned. What stood now in his place was the scowling glare of a would-be delinquent child. Izuku wanted to be a hero, but over the years, he grew jealous of kids whose quirks were visually stunning, like Bakugo Katsuki. The boy's hands were practically firework factories, and what about him? All Izuku could do was heal his wounds faster than normal. The kids would often tease him about this, saying that his quirk could only help himself and not others. The adults would often try to dispel such thoughts, but they had left their marks. For some time, Izuku really believed that he wouldn't be a great hero, because heroes helped others and not just themselves. The thought of only being able to help himself weighed Izuku down quite a bit, but he eventually grew over it. He even managed to cope by analyzing heroes and their quirks. On the surface, Izuku's quirk analysis notebooks may have just been something he did because he admired heroes so much, but in reality Izuku only ever took those notes because he wanted a quirk that would actually be useful in a fight. He secretly desired an ability to put bad guys down in a single hit just like All Might. He wanted the strength to save over 1,000 people, just like All Might. Izuku wanted something more, and that desire left him with a void that just begged to be filled. This desire kept on going until one day, when he was 10 years old. On a fated day when a 13-year-old bully decided to mess Midoriya Izuku. That was also the day when the void inside of Midoriya Izuku had been filled with a desire to fight. February 26, 8:20 a.m. Later the same day, we see Izuku and Katsuki standing in front of the UA gates, each with a helpful smile, or crazed grins, on their faces. "Hey," Izuku said. "Good luck." "Yeah, like I needed," Katsuki replied. "Just don't fail the exam." "I was just about to say the same thing to you," Izuku said. As the two boys walked forward, Izuku was suddenly stopped by a girl who Izuku Midoriya thought he'd never see again. "Yo, Hiro Otaku, Bakahatsu." Izuku's eyes widened in surprise as he took in the figure of a young girl with short dark purple hair and two earphone jacks that looked like they were attached to her earlobes. No wait, those were her earlobes. The young girl was dressed in a blue blazer with red bow that adorned the collar of her white blouse, gray pencil skirt, and a pair of black winter boots. "Jiru. What are you doing here?" The girl we see is Jiru Kayaka. She's a girl from Izuku's and Katsuki's past. They used to be friends when they were in elementary, but the group had to split up when Izuku and Katsuki were enrolled in Aldera Middle School, while Jiru enrolled in Asami Junior High. "Yo, Lobes, I thought you were applying for Shiketsu," Katsuki said, waving hi to their old friend. "Yeah, right, I failed their mock tests, so I came here instead," the girl named Jiru said. "That's to be expected," Izuku said. "Shiketsu's mock tests are ridiculously impossible. You'd have to be crazy smart to even have a chance." The girl sighed. "Rub it in, why don't ya? Anyway, I thought I studied enough, but man, those logic and practical application questions really threw me off." "Well, if you pass," Katsuki said. "Looks like the gang will be back together, huh?" "Yeah, that's true," Izuku replied. "Well, except for, you know, him." The three kids shared a somber emotion. They used to be a quartet, but due to certain reasons the fourth member of their group left. They were very close and shared a tight-knit bond, but suddenly, their fourth friend just turned them away. He didn't even give a reason as to why, he just up and went his own way. "Arg," Katsuki growled, which caused several students who walking nearby to flinch. "Let's just forget about that bastard and focus on us. Who cares where he is now, all that matters is that the three of us are going to UA." Katsuki then raised his fist. Izuku and Kayaka shared a look and smiled. "Yeah," Izuku said as he fist bumped the blonde. "Whatever," Kayaka said with a smile as she did the same. The girl then noticed something about the boys. "Wait, did you guys get taller?" "You just noticed that now?" Katsuki asked. "Well, to be fair, the last time I saw you guys was almost a year ago," Kayaka said, putting up her arms in defense. "Well, whatever," Izuku said. "Let's get going. It's freezing out here." The green-haired boy turned around and took a step forward, but failed to notice the brown-haired girl in front of him. They collided and the brunette fell to the ground. Seeing this, Izuku slightly panicked but immediately reached down to help the girl. "Sorry. I wasn't looking," Izuku said. "You alright? Here, let me help you up." Izuku then stuck his hand out, which the girl took and stood up. "Sorry about that, I didn't see you there." The brunette smiled and shook her head. "It's alright, in fact I could say thanks for bumping into me. I'm really nervous about the exam, and you bumping into me really shook me out of my nerves. Izuku let out a sigh of relief. He then got a better look at the girl. She was wearing a brown jacket, a pink scarf, a black pencil skirt, and black leggings. Underneath the girl's jacket was presumably the girl's school uniform shirt. Aren't you nervous? The girl asked. Not really, Izuku said. I've been training for the past 10 months to get ready. When Katsuki heard this, the blonde couldn't help but think back to about a month ago. It was a Saturday afternoon, around 3:45 p.m., and Bakugo Katsuki was pedaling his bike to the Dagoba Municipal Beach. Earlier, Izuku asked him to meet him there. He said something about training and a weird thing that happened to his body. When Katsuki arrived, he was amazed to see the beach free of the mountains of trash that littered the place. What happened? There used to be scrap and garbage as far as the eye could see. Just what the hell happened? Shaking his head from his thoughts, Katsuki saw Izuku on the beach. His friend was wearing a green tracksuit that had white stripes running down the sides. Izuku was doing punching and kicking exercises. Boy. Deku, I'm here, what the hell do you want? Katsuki yelled. Izuku stopped his exercises. Oh, no reason, I just want to kick your ass again, Bakahatsu. The boy said with a smirk. Katsuki smirked and glared at Izuku. Oh, so it's like that then? I'll have you know that you weren't the only one training his ass off. Obviously, since both of us had to take extra credit because we both fell asleep in class. Izuku replied as he cracked his knuckles. Katsuki took off his jacket to reveal that he was wearing only a black tank top. Man, they were still in the middle of winter for crying out loud, and this guy's just wearing a tank top. Izuku took off his tracksuit jacket. He was also in a dark green tank top. What is it these guys in tank tops? In the middle of Japan's winter season, no less. Izuku was mildly surprised when he saw his friend's upper body. When told Katsuki 9 months ago that he'd be training for the UA entrance exam, the ash blonde took this as a challenge and began training himself. Luckily for Katsuki, his father, Bakugo Masaru, was quite the accomplished businessman and had many connections to the best martial arts instructors in Japan. Taking full advantage of this, Katsuki trained his body like hell, not his quirk, his body. Katsuki wanted to improve his physique since Izuku's quirk was only a healing factor. The explosion quirk user knew for a fact that Izuku was a seasoned fighter, so he trained himself to learning martial arts to bridge their level in physical skills and prowess. When Katsuki's training ended, gone was the once lean muscular ash blonde, and in his place stood a slightly bulkier young teen. He was almost the same muscular physique as Izuku is now, and the two stood evenly at equals heights of 182 centimeters, 5'10". Alright, let's see if our training actually paid off. Izuku said. Katsuki got into a fighting stance. Don't you dare hold back, or else. With a shout, the boys rushed at each other, their fists collided and the fight began. Half an hour later, the boys were sitting on the steps nearby catching their breaths. Izuku was unharmed, but Katsuki was bruised and bleeding. Damn that healing factor of yours. Katsuki growled. Izuku laughed and put his right hand on Katsuki's neck. His hand then started to glow a faint green light. In a short amount of time, Katsuki's wound started to heal. The ash blonde felt the pain in his body slowly subside. After a few seconds, he felt better again. The truly great perk about Izuku's healing factor was that he had learned to heal others through physical skin contact. It got a little weird when Izuku was asked to heal the girls at Aldera, but hey, healing quirks were always needed, and Izuku was compensated for his troubles anyway. Izuku then stood up and grabbed his bag. He reached inside and pulled out 4 energy bars and 2 bottles of soda. Downside to healing others was that it tended to consume a lot of Izuku's body fat and stamina. If he didn't have excess fats, the healing would eat into his body's reserves of whatever was available. As they ate and drank their little snack, Izuku turned to Katsuki and said, "Hey, remember that one kid who had a dual quirk?" "Yeah." Katsuki replied as he finished of his energy bar. Her mother could create water from the moisture in the air, and her dad had telekinesis. Izuku nodded. The combination gave her a quirk that allowed her to create water and control it telekinetically. Katsuki downed the last of his soda. "Why are you telling me this?" "Well, when I was younger, for the longest time," Izuku started, "I always wanted a better quirk. I always wanted an emitter type, something flashy, you know." "Seriously, where are the fuck you going with this?" Katsuki asked, now starting to sound annoyed. "Ah, what the hell, it's better if I just show you." Izuku then stood up and walked to the shoreline. He reeled back his right arm and yelled. Smash. A shockwave then flew over the ocean and caused the waves to ripple outward to the sides. Katsuki gaped at the display of power. What the hell was that? Deku's healing quirk can do this? Or was he hiding this from me? Oi, Deku. What the hell was that? Izuku turned to face Katsuki with a wry smile. Wait, no, it looked like he was in pain. Katsuki then noticed his friend's arm. And what the hell happened to your arm? Katsuki demanded as he stood up, although he didn't panic too much since Izuku's arm started to heal anyway. Drawback, apparently. Izuku started. But long story short, I figured out my real quirk. My healing factor was just a part of it. And what is it? Some sort of super strength, or was that an emitter type? Both, it's actually an emitter type that increases my physical strength. Izuku explained as he flexed the muscles on his left arm. And I can channel that strength as kinetic energy through my extremities, even my fingers for example. So this is the weird thing that happened to your body? Katsuki asked. Yeah. Izuku grinned. I just need to train this strength since it does damage to me as well. Good thing I have healing factor. How'd you even discover this power? It just happened while I was training, I suddenly felt like I could punch through walls. And then the craziest thing happened, I punched a hole through the wall of my room, but my hand was pretty much jelly after that. Katsuki would never know at that point, but the story Izuku told him was one that had been fabricated by his best friend in order to keep it a secret. Izuku really didn't want to tell a lie to his friend either, but the way his healing worked around the kickback of One for All, it just made too good of a story. After talking for a bit and making introductions among themselves, Izuku learned that the girl's name was Uraraka Achako. After that the brunette wished the trio good luck and ran into the building. Izuku was smiling. Ayaka smirked at this. She was kind of cute, don't you think? Izuku gawked in shock, unable to make a good response. Katsuki smirked as well. Lobes, I didn't know you swing that way, I guess all three of us like girls then. Izuku mentally sighed in relief, but also laughed at Katsuki's quick jab. Unfazed by the explosion Quirk user's joke, Kayaka said. Wait, you like girls, Bakugo? I thought you had a crush on Midoriya over here. Both Katsuki and Izuku blushed due to how loud Kayaka said those words, even more so when the other students and examinees started turning their heads in their direction and started a chorus of mutters. Hey, isn't that Bakugo? You mean the guy from the sludge villain fiasco? Yeah, and isn't that Midoriya, the guy who rushed in to save him? Yeah, you're right. Wait, what did that girl say? Bakugo has crush on him. He's gay? I think they're both gay. Oh man, they were really good looking too. Ayaka laughed as she ran into the orientation hall, while Katsuki and Izuku stayed behind to dispel the misunderstanding. That bitch. The two boys growled. For all you examinee listeners tuning in, welcome to my show today. Everybody say hey. These were the words of Yamada Hisashi, better known as the voice hero, present Mick. His introductory greeting however was met with absolute silence. What a refined response. Present Mick said with his arms shaking. Well then, I'll quickly present to you the rundown of the practical exam. Are you ready? Yeah. Again, this was met with silence again. It's the voice hero, present Mick. Izuku said with a smile. No surprise since all teachers here at UA are pro heroes. I love this guy's radio show and even his daily talk shows. Katsuki grabbed Izuku by the hair and pulled him close, he then growled into the green head's ear. Don't even start. As it says in the application requirements. Present Mick began. You listeners will be conducting 10-minute mock battles after this. The wide screen behind present Mick then displayed the number of other battle centers that the examinees would be assigned to. You can bring whatever you want with you to these areas. Present Mick as he pulled out a metal baseball bat from underneath the podium. Most of you probably have support gear with you to aid your quirks like this directional speaker I have around my neck, or even typical melee weapons like this bat here. Damn it. Izuku said. If I had known that beforehand, I would have brought my bow staff with me. Like you need it. Katsuki replied. Just make sure you pass. Aw, is Kaken gonna pissed if I don't make it? Izuku asked in mockingly sweet tone. After the presentation, you'll head to the battle center specified on your exam tickets, okay? Okay, present Mick yelled but was still met with silence. In other words, they won't let you work with your friends or classmates. Katsuki said. You're right, even though our examinee numbers are consecutive, we've been assigned to different battle centers. Izuku replied. That's a damn shame, I wanted to take you down as well. Katsuki growled. Present Mick then continued on with the presentation. There are 3 different types of foe villains stationed at each battle center. You earn points for each them based on their level of difficulty. Your goal, dear listeners, is to your quirks by immobilizing the foe villains. Present Mick then turned to the examinees and pointed out. Of course, attacking other examinees and doing any other unheroic actions are prohibited. May I ask a question? Yelled a male examinee who abruptly stood up with his arm raised. Okay. Present Mick said pointing to the examinee. A spotlight then lit up above the examinee who turned out to be a young boy who had on a pair of glasses. He was wearing a formal uniform which consisted of a beige-colored coat, pants, and a blue tie. On the printout, there are 4 types of villains. If that is a misprint, then UA, the most prominent school in Japan, should be ashamed of that foolish mistake. We examinees are here in this place because we wish to be molded into exemplary heroes. The fuck? Kitsuki whispered. He could have just pointed out the fourth villain without that dumb speech. Izuku added. In addition, you two, the one with curly hair and the one with blonde hair. The boy wearing glasses said as he faced Midoriya and Bakugo. You two have been talking to each other and distracting me and the rest of the examinees. If you two aren't serious about this exam, then please leave. Itsuki and Izuku developed tick marks on their foreheads. They then looked at each other and nodded. Then, in a surprising twist, they smiled kindly and apologized. I'll bust up this guy later. Kitsuki yelled in his head as his contorted into pissed off glare. The hell is up with this guy? It's like he's got a huge stick up his ass. Izuku thought as he rolled his eyes at the kid. Alright, calm down. Present Mick said. Examinee number 7111. Thanks for the great message. The silhouette of the fourth villain appeared on the screen. The fourth type of villain is worth 0 points. That guy's more of an obstacle, so to speak. There's one in every battle center, an obstacle that'll go crazy in narrow spaces. It's not impossible to defeat, but there's no reason to defeat it either. I recommend that you listeners try to avoid it. Thank you very much. The boy wearing said as bowed. Please excuse the interruption. That's all from me. Present Mick said. Finally, I'll give listeners a present, our school motto. The hero Napoleon Bonaparte once said. A true hero is someone who overcomes life's misfortunes. Go beyond. Plus ultra. Now, everyone, good luck suffering. Present Mick added. But don't get killed, you hear. Izuku and Kitsuki suddenly grinned menacingly. They started emitting a malicious aura which caused some unease in the examinees who sat next to them. When the presentation ended, the examinees were then ushered to the school's locker rooms for them to change out of their uniforms and into something that they could actually fight in. After that, they were again ushered to a number of buses which would take them to their assigned battle centers. Before he got on his bus, Izuku saw Kayaka run up to him. She was wearing a black tracksuit and a pair of black boots which looked suspiciously thick. Her jacket was opened which revealed a pink t-shirt. Yo, Midoriya. Kayaka said. I guess we both got battle center B, huh? Yeah, Kaken got C. Izuku replied. We won't be seeing each other, damn shame too. I really wanted to do this exam while stealing points from under his nose. Geez, cool it bad boy. Kayaka said. If you don't watch out, I'll be the one who steals your points. Izuku smirked, mostly because Kayaka didn't know about one for all. Bring it. They then filed into the bus and taken to their assigned battle center. While on the bus, Izuku clenched his fist. This is it, the first step on his way to becoming a hero. Looking down at his right hand, Izuku remembered the training sessions he had with All Might on the beach. He also remembered telling the hero about his healing quirk. It's not really that perfect. Izuku said to All Might's curiosity. My healing actually has a drawback. And that would be? I found out that if I sustain injuries to more than 50% of my body, my healing capabilities go down. How much so? Izuku looked down. Back when I was delinquent. I'll just say that. Anything else that I should know about? All Might inquired. My healing factor needs a crazy amount of fuel to function properly. I can't heal as fast on an empty stomach. All Might simply nodded his head in understanding. Well, now that we know your limits, let's try to work a way around them, shall we? Even though All Might said that, Izuku never did manage to improve on his first drawback. The second one was easy to avoid if Izuku just ate a large amount of food before a fight. Izuku couldn't afford to be reckless here, there was no time for recklessness. Izuku had to prove that he can become a hero, everything was riding on this exam, and there was no room for failure. Trained by the No. 1 hero, keeping the promise he made to his mother, and trying to atone for his past. No mistakes could be afforded here. As the examinees filed out of the bus, Izuku tightened the straps of the fingerless boxing gloves around his hands. Many of the examinees were allowed to bring support items with them. But Izuku decided to keep it old school. He would have brought the weapons he fought well with, but he had no idea about them being allowed. Izuku breathed in and did some stretches, which he found rather uncomfortable due to his light green tracksuit jacket. Maybe I should just take this thing off. To which he did. Underneath his jacket, Izuku was wearing oh for fuck's sake, a dark green tank top. As the author of this fanfic, let me just redact that scene. Underneath his jacket, Izuku was wearing a dark green, sleeveless shirt. Yeah, that feels much better. The boy said as he did his stretches again. He then clenched his fingers and pounded his knuckles together. Alright, let's fucking do this. Izuku then took a look around to scope out the competition. Everyone's so confident, well, then again, so am I. He then noticed Kayaka, who was with Uraraka. It seemed like the punk girl was trying to calm the brunette down. It seems the gravity quirk user hasn't gotten over her nerves yet. Hey, it's Uraraka and Jiru, I should wish them good luck. As Izuku made his way over to the girl, he suddenly felt a hand on his shoulder. Who? Izuku turned to face him. Shit, not this guy again. Izuku thought as he sent a blank look toward the bespectacled teen who yelled at him back at the exam center. Those girls appear to be trying to focus. The boy said. What are you doing here? Are you taking the entrance exam to interfere with everyone else? Izuku internally sighed, he'd rather deal with Katsuki's shitty attitude. Look. Izuku said. First off, if a guy like you gets distracted that easily you'll never make it in the big leagues where distractions are everywhere. This caused the teen to visibly flinch. The other examinees even nodded their heads in agreement to what the green-haired teen said. Pro heroes were known to face distractions worse than two kids muttering in an auditorium. Secondly, I was gonna wish them good luck. I also owe that girl with brown hair, since she was really nice to me back at the exam center. I mean, look at her, what kind of person would cause such a nice girl like that to fail? Uraraka heard this and blushed. Jiru smirked at the blushing brunette. She then whispered something in the girl's ear, which caused her blush to get even redder. The bespectacled boy was about to apologize, but Izuku continued talking. And third. Izuku then put his hand on the teen's shoulder. He leaned in and sent the teen his most terrifying death glare. If you get in my way, I'll kill you. The glasses-wearing teen flinched at these words. That kind of behavior is too unacceptable. It's unfitting of being a hero. Izuku just turned away and flipped him off. To Izuku's luck, no one else saw this. Unacceptable. Okay, start. President Mick yelled as the examinees waited in front of the gate. The examinees then looked up to see the voice hero on top of a concrete tower that overlooked the area. Izuku smirked. Without wasting any time, the greenet bolted forward into the mock city. Wow, that kid can run. President Mick said as he stared at the cloud of dust behind the green-haired boy. He saw the other examinees still in front of the gates. Well, what are you waiting for? There's no countdown in real life. The die has been cast, you know. Go. 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 Maintaining his smirk, Izuku kept on running until he encountered his first opponent, a three-pointer. Too easy. Izuku said as he lunged and punched the robot, causing it to explode. This is awesome. Even if 20% is all I can get without hurting myself, it'll have to do for now. Keeping to his goal, Izuku kept running while trying to locate more robots, a one-pointer here, a three-pointer there, and several two-pointers in a group. All in all, Izuku managed to rack up a good number of points, but he lost rack after 25. Whatever, as long as he kept on beating down these robots, things would be easy. 6 minutes and 2 seconds left. President Mick yelled. Izuku let out a chuckle. Heh, time flies. He then ran off to find more villains. I wonder how Jiru and Uraraka are doing. I hope they get enough points to pass. While Izuku thought about the girls, we see them doing just fine actually. Uraraka was using her gravity quirk to lift the faux villains into the air and dropping them, although she was beginning to run out of breath. That makes 28 points. 28 points, Izuku said out loud. Man, she's good. Jiru was using her earphone jacks in tandem with her boots, which turned out to be speakers. The sound waves that emanated from them were strong enough to shatter the faux villains to pieces. 33 points in the bag. Oh shit, how many points do I have? Man, I can't believe I lost count. While Izuku panicked a little about his point status, the ground started to shake. This caused the examinees to turn their heads in the direction of what sounded like the treads of a tank rolling on concrete. The sound was followed by glass shattering, a couple of buildings collapsing, and a huge robot rolling in out of nowhere. Kayaka ran up to Izuku. Midoriya, what is that? The shadow suddenly was cast over Izuku and Kayaka. The bad boy then looked up. Lo and behold, it was the zero-pointer. The robot then proceeded to crush a nearby building with one of its arms. It's a crazy obstacle that will go crazy in narrow spaces. I recommend that you listeners try to avoid it. Isn't it a little too fucking big? Izuku calmly thought. That's obviously the zero-pointer. That's one huge robot. Kayaka said as she gaped at the size of the machine. Kinda overkill, don't you think? The robot then punched the ground, causing a dust cloud to rise up and cover the area. Izuku grabbed Kayaka and shielded her from the wind and dust. Soon the dust settled down. Letting go of his friend, Izuku turned to face the zero-pointer. We should get out here. Kayaka looked up at Izuku. There was a faint blush on the girl's face. Yeah, we should. The two then noticed that the other examinees had the same idea and were running away from the area. Kayaka quickly turned heel and ran for it. Izuku took one last look at the zero-pointer before turning around. Oh hey, if it isn't Four Eyes. Izuku said as he ran up next to the bespectacled teen. I thought that thing killed you. Began with your unacceptable behavior. The boy yelled. I wished never to utter words like these, but I hope you fail. Izuku smirked. Aw, you do love me. But then Izuku's smirk fell when he heard it. Ow. Somebody. Help me. It was faint against the sound of the zero-pointer's treads, but Izuku heard it loud and clear. Turning around, he saw Uraraka trapped under a huge piece of rubble. What made things even worse was that the zero-pointer was moving forward in her direction. There was barely any thought, his legs moved on their own again. There was just something ingrained into Midoriya Izuku's mind when it came to saving people. On that fated night, he failed to save his mother when he heard the sound of the car's horn, and she ended up in a coma. That was most likely the catalyst of why Izuku's legs developed a mind of their own sometimes. Izuku ran back, almost as if by instinct. There is absolutely no merit in taking on the faux villain. But that creates the opportunity for it to shine brightly. He channeled 100% of One for All into his legs and jumped. And rise to the surface. In a fit of both anger and desperation, Izuku channeled One for All into his right arm, he tightened his fist and reeled back. Jinkatsu. Clench your buttocks and yell this in your heart. Smash. Izuku yelled as his fist made contact with the zero-pointer's head. Down on the ground, Uraraka and Jiru, along with other examinees, could only gape in shock as well as surprise when they saw the zero-pointer. That's right. It rises to the surface. The most important qualification of a hero. The spirit of self-sacrifice. The pain that coursed through right arm and legs were completely negated by the feeling of pure adrenaline that coursed through his body, but as soon he calmed down from his adrenaline rush, the pain just broke through. Izuku clenched his teeth in as he fell. This is bad, my arm and legs are still healing, and I won't be able to survive a fall from this height. Shit. I should have thought this through, I've got no choice. Clenching his left hand, he channeled One for All into his only good arm and took aim. Hopefully, this'll break my fall. Sma slap, wait what? Izuku suddenly found himself floating a couple of feet above the ground. Release. Uraraka, who was also floating on a robot's head, said as she put her fingertips together. Izuku slowly floated to the ground, feeling his legs start to heal. He rolled onto his back and slowly brought himself to sit upright. He was then treated to Uraraka spilling the contents of her stomach out through her mouth. Izuku turned away. You can puke rainbows. Izuku thought in mild amusement. Soon, Izuku was able to regain the feeling in both his kickers. He then stood up and walked over to help Uraraka down from the robot's head. In that time his arm was able to heal as well, although it was a little numb. Thanks for the save. Izuku said, carrying the girl bridal style. I would have been flatter than a pancake if it wasn't for you. Uraraka blushed due to being carried in such a way, but because of her upset stomach, she could hardly stand anyway. And time's up. Present Nick yelled, followed by the sound of alarm blaring. This was obviously to signal all the examinees in each battle center that the exam was over. Crap, I wanted to get more points. Izuku said, he then looked down at Uraraka. Hey, you think you can stand on your own? The girl simply nodded. Izuku slowly let Uraraka down. She was a little wobbly, but managed to hold herself up. Midoriya, Uraraka. Kayaka yelled as she ran up to the two. Are you two alright? Izuku smiled and nodded his head. Lost a glove. Izuku held up his right arm. But I'm good. I'm a little dizzy. Uraraka said. But I'm fine. Kayaka then turned to Izuku. What the hell was that? The girl asked, pointing to the zero-pointer behind them. I thought your quirk was a healing factor, you never said anything about super strength, what was that? Whoa, calm down. Izuku said as he put his hands up. I can explain all this later, we should go check on Kaken first. As the three kids chatted away, the other examinees could only stare in awe at the green-haired teen. He jumped an unbelievable distance into the air and took out the zero-pointer with just one hit. What was that guy? He suddenly jumped at the obstacle. He seemed to have a reinforcement-type quirk, but that awesome. He has such an amazing quirk, kinda like All Might. Would he take down the zero-pointer anyway? Maybe he knew time was running out and decided to do it for fun. With a quirk that could do that, I'd probably do the same. Anyway, there's no mistaking that he's one amazing guy. They're missing the point. The bespectacled teen thought. Didn't they see? He didn't just jump and take out the zero-pointer for fun, he did it to save that girl. The teen then turned to look at the zero-pointer's mangled remains. He was also running away like the rest of us, but he turned back because even I heard her calling out for help. Even so, he didn't hesitate at all when he saw her trapped under the rubble. Clenching his fist, the glasses-wearing teen grit his teeth in guilt, he felt so ashamed. If we hadn't been in an exam. Of course, I would have done the same and put myself on the line. It then dawned on the teen. Wait, exam? He turned to look at the green-haired boy. Of course. Wait a minute. Could he have? Okay, good work everyone. The examinees turned to see an elderly woman along with a much younger girl following along. Good work, really good work. The old lady then proceeded to pass out candies. She then turned to the younger girl behind her. Miwa-chan, go around to see if there are any examinees who need help. The girl, named Miwa, nodded her head. You can count on me, Abachan. Hey, you're Recovery Girl, the youthful hero who can heal others. Izuku said as he walked up to the old lady. I see I still have fans. Recovery Girl said in delight. Are you injured, young man? Izuku shook his head. No, I'm fine. If anything, could I help out? With what, young man? The exam is over, you can go home now. Recovery Girl said. I mean, with healing. Izuku said. I have a healing factor, and part of that power is that I can heal others through physical contact. Recovery Girl smiled. Alright then, come with me. There he goes again. Kayaka said. Midoriya is the kind of guy who is always willing to help others regardless of his own standing. You mean he does this a lot? Uraraka asked. Yup, but that's why he's such a great friend, he's always there for you no matter what. This only served to enforce the bespectacled teen's thoughts in the green-haired boy. Izuku steeled his nerves as he stared down at the letter with a red wax seal on it. He then ripped the letter open and out fell a small electronic device. What's this? The device suddenly turned on. I am here as a projection. Huh? All Might. Izuku said in surprise. Wait, if you're, that must mean. I had to do some paperwork that took some time, so I couldn't find time to contact you. All Might coughed into his fist and bowed. I am sorry. Actually, I came to this town to work at UA. Huh, All Might is working at UA? The person off screen suddenly signaled All Might. Huh? What is it? Wrap it up. But there's something I must talk to him about. Can't it wait until school starts? Izuku said to himself. It's going to push everything else back. Alright. Okay. Izuku stared unsure at the projection for a second. Since you passed the written exam and gotten quite an impressive score of 40 points on the practical exam, that would mean you passed. Izuku breathed a sigh of relief. And I actually panicked about my points during the exam, damn it, I shouldn't doubt my abilities. That may be that, but there was a bit of a surprise. I am an entertainer as well. Is he talking about that time at the beach? First, take a look at this video. All Might said as he pointed a remote control to a flat screen behind him. On the screen, we see Uraraka Achako. Excuse me, Uraraka. That looks like the inside of the school, what's she doing there? Izuku asked nobody in particular. She came to negotiate directly in person after the exam had ended. Huh? Negotiate what? You might ask. Keep watching and find out. On the video, we see Uraraka talking with Present Mick. The person with curly hair and freckles. Do you know who I'm talking about? Izuku pointed to himself. That's me. I think. Midoriya Izuku. Yup, that's me. Izuku said again to no one in particular. Is it possible for me to give him some of my points? Uraraka asked. Wait, why would she? I heard him say. I wanted to get more points. So I thought maybe he didn't have enough points to pass the practical exam, it's probably because he had to save me that he might not have gotten the points he needed. Please, if you can do anything. Whoa, Uraraka would do something like that for someone she's only known for a short time. Izuku said he was quite impressed at her for speaking out to do something like this. All Might then paused the video. In addition to having another quirk, your action spurred others to act. Her action are truly commendable for the hero course. The entrance exam though, wasn't graded only on villain points. Even if you ask to, you cannot give him your points. Present Mick replied to Uraraka's request as he patted her head. Anyway, there's no reason to give him any, little miss listener. How can a hero course reject people who save others and do the right thing? Call that lip service. Bring it on. This is a job that requires risking one's life to put that lip service into practice. Rescue points. Izuku's eyes widened at this, he even smirked. I wonder Kaken got any, nah I doubt it. And they are awarded by a panel of judges. It's the other basic ability we at UA are looking for. Midoriya Izuku, with 60 rescue points and 40 villain points. Your name was added to the roster of UA applicants who scored 100 or more points during our annual practical exam. No way. Izuku breathed. The only ones who ever got scores like that were heroes like All Might, Endeavor, and Best Jeanist. And Uraraka Achako, 40 villain points and 20 rescue points, for a total of 60 points. You both pass. Izuku couldn't but laugh a little at the score he got, not because it was funny or anything, but because he was suddenly deemed worthy to stand beside 3 of Japan's top heroes in terms of the UA entrance exam. Oh man, this is too crazy. Izuku said as tears started falling from his eyes. He would cry because right then and there he realized that he was now even closer to not only achieving his dream and atoning for his past, but he was also closer to fulfilling the promise he made to his mother, Midoriya Izuku, before that fateful day when she had slipped into a coma. Midoriya Shonen. All Might said. This is your Hero Academia. Yes sir. Izuku said. Midoriya Izuku was on cloud 9, nothing could have been better, he was now going to UA, he was finally on the road to becoming a hero. The following day at 3:30 PM we see Midoriya Izuku on his bike again. Even though his mother would be unresponsive to anything he'd say, he still felt like he had to tell her about the exam. Izuku sat by his mother's bed, in his hands was a bouquet of assorted flowers. He set the flowers on a nearby table. I'm finally on my way to becoming a hero. The boy said. I passed the UA entrance exam, I'll be starting school in a couple months. On the bed, Inko was laid like she always was. Her face was so calm and serene. I know I haven't been good, and I always blame myself for what happened that night. Izuku said as tears threatened to fall from his eyes. But still, I'll keep my promise, I'll be a hero, one that you will be proud of. There was sudden knock on the door that garnered Izuku's attention. Hello. The door opened to reveal Inko's personal doctor, a middle-aged woman who was also a dear friend to the Midoriya family. Oh, Izuku-kun, you're still here, that's good. I have some wonderful news to tell you. Izuku stood up. What is it, Dr. Shiroyama? Well, we've been a very close eye on your mother for some time now. The doctor said as she showed Izuku the clipboard she was holding. I'm pretty sure you're not that familiar with medical procedures, but these graphs here show your mother's brain activity over the last month compared to her brain activity to 6 months ago. Izuku looked at the graphs, they were line graphs. This one has steady lines, well this has lines that spike up and down. What does that mean? For the past month, your mother has been neurologically conscious, we actually suspect that she might even come out of her coma sometime soon. The doctor said with a hopeful smile. It's all a matter of when she wakes up. Izuku looked back at his mother, he then sat back and reached for Inko's right hand. You hear that mom, you're getting better, I always knew you strong. Izuku said as tears streamed down his face. You'll get to see me becoming a hero with your own 2 eyes, isn't that great? I can finally fulfill my promise with you watching me, mom, please wake up soon. The cumulative results for the practical exam are out. I can't believe this kid got second place with 87 villain points and 0 rescue points. The foe villains acquire their targets and draw near them. In the second half, as others were slowing down, he used his flashy quirk to keep bringing them close and then counter-attacking. It's the result of his toughness. He set quite a good record actually, the only applicant we know with villain points that high was Endeavor. This kid sure has the potential to stand out from the others, that's for sure. However, in contrast, the first placer managed to rack up 100 points in total. There have been other examinees who took on the 0-pointer in the past, but it's been a while since I last saw someone blow it away like that. At first, his limbs were flailing around like noodles after his attack, but sometime later he was walking around like nothing happened. To possess such a destructive quirk accompanied with a healing factor, this kid could go places if he trains hard enough. Well, he can practically stand alongside All Might, Endeavor, and Best Jeanist in terms of the exam's point scores. I'm sure he'll make it big one day. While the panel of judges were discussing the number of applicants who had passed, we see a scruffy-looking man in the background staring at the image of Midoriya Izuku up on one of the screens. Oh. He actually stayed true to what he told me then. With that score, he'll end up in my class for sure. This should be fun. The man smirked as he recalled a fateful night 3 years ago when he first met Midoriya Izuku. Aizawa Shouda was a man of mystery, intrigue, and most importantly a logical and rational mind. He was known in the hero industry as the Erasure Hero. Eraserhead, an underground hero who operated at night. This is due to his hatred of the media. This reason alone is why he chose to do hero work only under the cover of darkness. In truth, Aizawa was a bit of a night owl, so the nocturnal setting was a little bit of a bonus for him. Crime was also more rampant at night, and Erasure Hero had his work cut out for him. Usually the nights would get a little boring, since not every criminal was inclined to committing crime every night, but while on patrol in Musatafa one night, Eraser came across a rather peculiar sight. An alleyway brawl. This may not have seemed strange at first, but when Aizawa took a closer look he noticed that the fight was a 3-on-1. Stranger still, the lone fighter looked to be no older than 11 years of age. Aizawa wanted to stop this fight since the other 3 looked to be older delinquents above the 17 at best. He didn't stop the fight however, because the longer the Erasure Hero watched the fight, he noted that the younger kid was holding himself pretty well against the much older teens. When Eraser decided to finally confront the boy, it seemed that the child had already won. Deciding to act before the kid would run, fitting his goggles over his eyes, Eraser jumped from his perch and used the scarf-like cloth around his neck to latch onto the nearby cornerstone of an apartment building. When he landed, Eraserhead's presence momentarily startled the kid, who jumped back and fell to the ground. "Pretty impressive, kid, taking on 3 older teens like this," Eraserhead said as he reached down and offered the child a hand. "But I have to ask, for what reason did you start a fight with them?" "Eraserhead," the kid said as he stared at the Erasure hero with both awe and a little bit of fear. "I didn't do anything wrong, I was just." "So you know I am then?" Eraser said as he took his goggles off. "Just answer the question." While he looked a little apprehensive, the boy replied. They were picking on my friends at school." "Bullies, huh?" Eraserhead asked. "You could have just reported this to the police, I'm sure they would have." "The police never do anything." The kid suddenly yelled. This caught the Erasure hero by surprise. "They never believe me when I tell them about these thugs. Every time I try to explain what's going on, they just tell me to go home and that they'd handle it." The kid sounded like this occurred often. "There was even one time where they told me to stop making jokes and just do things kids would do. The police are useless, they never do anything." Eraserhead inwardly sighed. He was in Musatafu City after all. Most of the police members that he saw here were rather bitter due to the fact that they had to choose police work because they couldn't become heroes. That bitterness, in turn, wouldn't just affect how they did their jobs, but also how they treated people on a daily basis. Eraserhead even remembered the incident of a policeman who was so distraught about his lifestyle that he took up several firearms and caused the infamous Musatafu shopping center shootout. The man had taken several lives before he subsequently blew himself up with a grenade. Shaking away his thoughts, Eraser looked at the boy and tried to discern what the boy's quirk was. "Tell me, what kind of quirk do you have? It must be something strong in order for you to have taken on these teens by yourself. Also, what's your name?" "Midoriya Izuku," the kid replied. "And my quirk, it's a healing factor." So that's how he was able to take them on. Some healing quirks were known to negate pain to an extent and can even grant the user a crazy amount on stamina. Your quirk isn't really that flashy. Villains out there have far more dangerous quirks than you can imagine. A healing factor may be useful to you, but what use can it be to others? Tell me, do you want to become a hero? Despite your lack of flashiness. Why was he asking these questions? For some reason, Eraserhead found himself acting rather illogically around this kid. Rather than asking questions, shouldn't he take this kid home? Worry about his well-being? He could have done many other things, but he chose to idly waste his time by asking the kid pointless questions. "More than anything," Midoriya replied as he turned to stare dead into Eraserhead's eyes. "I just want to help others, regardless of many think. I just want to help people in need." That was when Izawa Shouda saw it. He saw a fire, a burning desire in the kid's gaze. "I don't care what my quirk is, as long as I can lend a helping hand," Izuku said. "As long as I can be there to reassure people and let them know that they're safe, I just want to be someone who can say, 'It's fine now, because I'm here.'" There were many things that Izawa Shouda stood for as a hero, and it just so happened that he could relate to some of the things that this kid had said. He too wanted to save others, he too couldn't care less about not having a visually stunning quirk, and, even though he'd never admitted, he also wanted to be a reassurance to those in need. "Tell me then," Eraserhead continued. "If given the chance one day, would you truly follow your dreams, even if people told you otherwise?" "I've already set my sights on my future, Eraserhead-san," Izuku said as he clenched his fist. "One day, I'll go to UA and become a cool hero." This kid sure has good potential, Izawa knew that for a fact, even though the kid hit a rough patch and ended up becoming a delinquent. Well, that didn't matter. Izawa Shouda was a pro hero and a teacher at UA. His job was practically to make heroes, and if Midoriya Izuku's conviction was still as strong as the day they first met, Izawa could be sure of one thing: the boy has the makings of a great hero. Midoriya Izuku was running, dressed in his tracksuit. The teen was running in the direction of the Dagoba Municipal Beach. The reason as to why the boy was heading there was in the form of a rather skinny blonde adult. "Hey All Might," Izuku said with excitement in his voice. All Might yelped as blood sprayed from in between his teeth. "Who's that?" "Huh? No way. All Might? Where?" Apparently there were 2 people on the view deck that stretched out across the shoreline. Izuku stood frozen. He nearly revealed All Might's true form to a couple of strangers. "PSST, repeat after me." "Sorry, wrong person." "Oh. Sorry, wrong person," Izuku yelled back. What? I was hoping to see him." The 8th and 9th holders of One for All breathed a sigh of relief. "Sorry about that," Izuku said. "I'm here, what did you want to tell me?" "First off, congrats on getting accepted," All Might said holding out his fist. "Thanks." Izuku smiled as he shared a fist bump with his teacher. It was only through you that I was able to do what I did. Just so you know, I didn't tell the school about my connection to you. You're the type that would think that's cheating, right? I wasn't one of the judges. Thanks for your concern, but even though, I'm still trying to wrap my head around the fact I'm going to UA of all places. Izuku said. I'm also surprised to find that you were teacher there too. So that's why you came here, huh? Yeah, I couldn't tell anyone before the school announced it. I just happened to be offered a job from UA around the same time when I was looking for a successor. That makes sense. Izuku said. You were originally planning on choosing one of the students, maybe, one student that happened to stand out from the rest, one gifted with an amazing quirk. And you fit all those qualifications. All Might replied. You stand out because you have the heart of a hero, you possess a spirit of self-sacrifice, and you have a healing factor that can withstand one for all's kickback. But, I can only draw out 20% without hurting myself, any more than that, and the power will break my body. I can't control it at all. That can't be helped. All Might said. It's like if you asked a person who suddenly grew a tail to do a trick, they wouldn't even be able to control it. Besides, you don't have to worry, your healing factor is really helpful. Yeah, about that. Izuku said. Why did I have to clean the beach anyway? You said that my body was unprepared, but wouldn't my healing factor have been enough to compensate for that? All Might smiled and pulled out his phone. This is the reason. All Might said as he showed Izuku the picture of him cleaning the beach on the first week. Even though your physique during that time was lean muscle, I needed to train your body to become more durable in order to take on one for all. My fear was that even though you had a healing factor, your lean physique might not have been able to withstand the physical repercussion. Your limbs could have been ripped off if we weren't being careful. Mind you, your quirk is healing, not regeneration. Izuku then stared at his arms. Well, I sure as hell don't want that. Green-haired boy then thought back to his training, then to Kitsuki, his friend has also ended up training because of him. Ah. Oh well, at least I can still brag about being buff, huh? That's true, after everything you went through, in the end things were alright, or should I say All Might. All Might laughed at his pun. Izuku just rolled his eyes but smiled nonetheless. Right now you're between 0% and 20%, that's the limit you can reach with having to rely on your healing factor to fix yourself. All Might said, picking up a couple of empty spray paint cans. But once you've reached a higher limit past 20%, say 100%, you'll be able to draw on one for all's full power without having to even think about your healing factor. Control. How? Izuku asked. The more you train a vessel, the more you'll be able to move the power freely. Like this. All Might explained as he then suddenly shifted to muscle form and crushed the paint cans like they were made of paper. Whoa. Izuku said in awe. Wait, is that All Might? No way. When did he get here? Both one for all holders flinched. Let's go, Midoriya Shonen. All Might said he suddenly ran from where he stood. Yes sir. Izuku just shook his head with a smile and ran after his mentor. He may be a cool hero, but All Might can be a really huge idiot at times. Well, I shouldn't anything, I'm pretty sure he has his reasons. It was 8:37 AM one morning, and Izuku was a little bored, even though he had passed the exam and was assured that he'd get into UA no matter what. He had nothing to do until classes started. Sure, he still did his training routines, but now that he hit his physical peak, there wasn't much to improve on. While laying on his bed and pondering on what to do, Izuku's phone suddenly rang. Picking up the phone, he was surprised to see an incoming call from Jiro Kyoka. Hey, Jiro, what's up? Hey, nerd. Kyoka replied. I'm bored, and I wanted to know if you're free to hang out today. What a coincidence, I'm fucking bored myself. Izuku said. Wanna hit Wookiees? You mean the shopping mall in Kiyashi Ward? Kyoka asked. Well, that place is pretty huge, yeah sure, why not? Mind if I bring a friend? The more the merrier. Izuku replied. Alright, is 11 o'clock a good time? Yup, I'll meet you at the train station. See you there. Izuku hung up and put his phone down. Let's see, 8:40, got about 3 hours before I meet up with Jiro, might as well do some reps while waiting. Soon enough, 11 AM rolled by and Izuku was at the Tatooine train station waiting for Jiro. The boy was wearing a dark green t-shirt, one that looked half a size too small for his bulky physique, a pair of dark blue denim jeans, and his red running shoes. Hey, nerd. Jiro said as she walked to Izuku. The punk girl was wearing a light blue t-shirt underneath a jacket with black and white stripes. She wore a pair of skinny black jeans and the same boots she wore at the exam, and on her neck was a black choker. I was wondering when you were gonna show up. Izuku said, he then motioned the girl who behind Kyoka. Mind introducing us? The punk girl was accompanied by a slightly taller girl that had her hair pulled up in a spiky ponytail. The girl was wearing a pink V-neck t-shirt underneath a thin violet jacket. She was wearing a pair of skinny light blue jeans and a pair of white running shoes. This is Yaoi Rozu Momo. Jiru said. She's going to UA in April, just like us. The greenette stuck his hand out for a handshake which the ponytailed girl did, albeit a little hesitantly. Kayaka noticed this, but chalked it up to them being strangers to one another. The earphone jack girl also took note of how muscular Izuku was and that his tight shirt left nothing to the girl's imagination. Kayaka shook these thoughts out her head however. What the hell? Nice to meet you Midoriya-san. Momo said. Yaoi Rozu? Izuku thought. Why does that name sound familiar? Anyway. Kayaka said, snapping the green-haired teen out of his thoughts. Let's go, our train's here. The three teens boarded the train which took them to the Kiashi ward. Once they got off it was around 11:30 and since they had to walk a short distance to the shopping mall, it'd be lunch by the time they got there. So, where should we go first? Kayaka asked as the three teens walked around. I heard a new cafe opened up here. Izuku said. You want to check it out? Why not? Kayaka replied. It's also noon, we should get some lunch. Momo added. Once they reached the cafe and made their way inside, the trio were met with a rustic-style Spanish interior cafe bistro. The layout was stunning, the walls were stone brick, up in the ceiling, you could see the wooden support beams which had hanging lights attached to them. There were around 25 decorated tables in the cafe, and each of them could seat 4 people. But the counter was what really caught their attention. Behind it there were several coffee machines manned by only one person. As the man behind the counter waved his hands, the coffee machines sprung to life, metal cups and spoons floated by themselves around the machines which helped the barista to produce several cups of coffee all at once. Good thing too since there was a long line of people waiting for their drinks and orders. What? Is that Magnetron? Kayaka asked. The Magnet Hero? Momo added. Yeah, that's him, I'd recognize those blue and red gloves anywhere. Izuku said taking notice. Magnetron. Quirk. Magnetism. This hero is able to control any type of magnetic metals, but his control is only limited to certain radius. Soon the three teens that were standing in line finally got their turn to order. Once they placed their orders, Izuku started barraging the Magnet Hero with questions. He even started up a round of his infamous muttering. Ayaka simply rolled her eyes and slapped the teen upside the head, which caused Momo and the Magnet Hero to sweat drop. Sorry, he gets like this when he's around heroes. It's alright, but still, one question at a time please. Magnetron said as he continued to wave his hands. My fans deserve to know what they want. The day then went on like a normal outing between friends, despite Momo being a little creeped out by Izuku's muttering. It was a little awkward since Izuku barely knew Momo, but overall they had fun. They got to know more about one another. Izuku learned that Momo's quirk was the ability to create any inorganic material by using her lipids as a source, but she needed to know the atomic structure in order for her to make what she wanted. Izuku also explained about his healing factor and the strength augmenting quirk he recently discovered. He explained that since some quirks could manifest later in life, he achieved his strength quirk after training his body like hell until one day he felt an unusual tingle in his arms. Focusing on that he then discovered that he was able to stockpile physical energy and then convert it into kinetic energy though his body. Itsuki was really shocked when I told him this. Izuku said at the end of his explanation. Who's Kitsuki? Momo asked. Oh, he's a friend of ours from when we were younger. Kayaka replied. He's the blonde kid I mentioned, you know, the one with a shitty attitude. Izuku smirked at this. The conversation continued on and ranged from quirks, heroism, UA, and what their main end goal was. At the end of the day, the kids eventually had to go their separate ways and head home. That night, all Jiru Kayaka could think of as she laid in bed was Izuku's muscular body. The girl felt her face grow hot as several erotic thoughts ran through her mind. The girl immediately got out of her bed and ran to the bathroom. She needed a cold shower. A really cold shower. Class 1A, 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 where the hell is my classroom? Midoriya Izuku said as he jogged through the halls of UA High School. After some time, he finally found the door to Class 1A. This door is fucking huge. Is it for accessibility or something? Izuku had the right to be stunned. The classroom door was over 15 feet tall. Was there a giant in the class? I just hope I won't have to deal with 4 eyes. Izuku whispered to himself. He put his hands together. Please, if there is some sort of unknown force out there, please help me. Izuku then opened the door. Don't put your feet on the desk. Fuck. Izuku yelled in his mind when he saw you-know-who. Why not? My feet hurt from walking all the way here. Bakugo Kitsuki said to the teen. At least Kaken's here to keep him busy. Izuku thought. Don't you think that's rude to the UA upperclassmen and the people who made that desk? Nope. What junior high did you go to, you side character? Kitsuki asked with mocking tone. The teen looked up for a second before put his hand to his chest. I attended some private academy. My name is Ida Tenya. Same? So you're a damn elite, huh? Katsuki snarled. Looks like I'll have fun beating the shit out of you. The teen, Tenya, as he called himself, flinched at these words. You would threaten a fellow classmate? That's cruel. Do you truly aim to be a hero? Lay off, Bakahatsu. Izuku called from the doorway. You still have a -1 on me, remember? Oh, Deku. Katsuki said with a smirk. Don't worry, I'll get that one up soon. Everyone then turned to face the smirking bad boy standing by the door. Yo, looks like I'm early. Good morning. Tenya said as he slowly approached Izuku. Izuku kept a passive face, but he was panicking on the inside. What are you doing? Don't come over here. Stop walking. Gamete. I am from Same Private Academy. My name is. Izuku put his hands up. Whoa, stop, I heard. I'm Midoriya. Nice to actually meet you, I guess. Izuku said. Midoriya-kun, you realized there was something more to the practical exam, didn't you? Tenya asked. What? I had no idea. I misjudged you. I hate to admit it, but despite your attitude, you are better than me. Sorry. I actually didn't realize anything. I shouldn't tell him that though. Izuku then cast a glance inside the classroom to see who his classmates were. He saw and recognized a few people, one of them was Yaoi Momo, Jiro Kayaka's friend. The ponytailed girl noticed him in the doorway and waved, to which Izuku acknowledged with a smile. He saw a kid with 6 arms, wasn't he one of the kids assigned to Battle Center B? Guess he got a good enough score to make it in. Some of the others caught Izuku's attention more than the rest. One kid had the head of a raven, or crow, depending on how you look at it. Sitting next to Momo was a guy with hair color that threw Izuku off. The right side of his hair was white, and the left side was red. Izuku wondered if it was related to his quirk. There was a girl with pink skin, she had a couple horns sticking out of her head, and she also had yellow pupils and black sclera. Oh, that curly hair. Uraraka Achako exclaimed happily as she walked in. Midoriya, you're really here. The brunette was accompanied by Jiro Kayaka. Yo, Midoriya. Izuku turned and smiled as he greeted the zero-gravity quirk and the earphone jack quirk users. Hey Uraraka, Jiro. You passed, just like President Mick said. Of course you did. That punch was amazing. Achako said as she put her right hand up, brought it down to emphasize her point. Hey, they both look good in the school's uniform. Izuku thought as he got a better look at the two girls. Izuku was a little lost in thought. He didn't even get most of what Uraraka was saying, something about an entrance ceremony or the teachers. Though somewhere else if you want play at being friends. Izuku looked down and stared at the yellow caterpillar man before yelling in his mind. What the fuck? Why is he here? This has got to be a cruel joke. Unknown force. Where are you? He yelped. Achako, Kayaka, and Tenya all looked as well to see a scruffy-looking man inside a yellow sleeping bag. This is the hero course. The man said as he took out a juice packet and drank its contents. He then stood up and unzipped himself out of his sleeping bag. Okay, it took you 8 seconds before you got quiet. Time is limited. You kids are not rational enough. Don't tell me. Izuku thought grimly as the man walked into the classroom. I'm your homeroom teacher, Aizawa Shouda. The man said. Nice to meet you. I'm doomed. Izuku yelled in his mind. The green-haired boy wasn't the only one surprised. Apparently his classmates had shared in his moment of shock. The man looked scruffy. His bored eyes looked like he didn't want to be there, and his haggard appearance made it look like he hadn't slept well for a few days. It's kind of sudden. Aizawa said as he pulled out a PE uniform from his sleeping bag. But please proceed to your locker rooms, you'll find PE uniforms like this one. Please put one on and meet me at the track field. Meanwhile, one of the boys in the classroom looked at Midoriya and uttered a single word under his breath. Midoriya. The quirk assessment test everyone in class 1 questioned. What about the entrance ceremony? The orientation? Uraraka asked. If you going to become a hero, you don't have time for such leisurely events. Aizawa said, which was met by mixed reactions from his students. UA's selling point in how unrestricted its school traditions are. That's also how the teachers run their classes. Aizawa's words were once again met with some mixed reactions, some of understanding, some of confusion, and some of awe. UA truly is a unique school, one that didn't adhere to normal curricular procedures. You kids have been doing these since junior high, too, right? Aizawa said as he held up a handheld device. Physical fitness tests where you weren't allowed to use your quirks. The country still uses averages taken from results from students not using their quirks. It's not rational. Well, the Ministry of Education is just procrastinating. Aizawa then let out a loud yawn. You'll be doing these tests, but with your quirks. Aizawa said as tossed a softball to Katsuki. You got the most villain points on the practical exam, Bakugo. How far was your softball throw in junior high? 67 meters. Replied the explosion quirk user. Then, try doing it now but your quirk. As always said. You're free to do anything as long as you stay within that circle. Hurry up. Give it all you've got. Alright then. Kitsuki said he did some stretches. I'll just add a little explosiveness in my throw. Kitsuki reared his arm back and threw the ball. Die. The explosion launched the ball high into the air while Izuku just stared at his friend. Die? Izuku questioned as he saw the ball fly a great distance. Know your own maximum first. As always said as he showed the distance on his handheld device. That is the most rational way to form the foundation of a hero. 795.7 meters. Said the electronic voice on Izawa's handheld. The students were awed by the number displayed. Whoa, it almost reached 800 meters. Said the blonde with a black lightning bolt in his hair. Seriously? What's this? It kinda looks like fun. Said a girl with pink skin. We can use our quirks as much as we want. Said a boy with straight black hair. As expected from the hero course. It looks fun. Huh. As always said he turned to stare at the students. Damn it. Izuku thought. They shouldn't have said that. Eraser's gonna pull something for sure. You have 3 years as students to become a hero. Would you have an attitude like that the whole time? Aizawa then grinned, but in a creepily sinister sort of way that put the student on edge. Alright, let's make this really then. Whoever comes last in all 8 tests will be judged to have no potential and will be punished with expulsion. And there it is. Izuku thought with a grim smile. I just feel bad for the person who comes in last. I hope Jiro and Uraraka can pull their own here. Some of the students then recoiled in panic. We're free to do what we want about the circumstances of our students. Aizawa said as he pulled his hair and grinned maliciously. Welcome to UA's hero course. Last place will be expelled. Achako asked. But it's the first day of school. No, even if it wasn't, this is too unfair. Natural disasters, big accidents, and selfish villains. Aizawa replied. Calamities whose times or place can't be predicted. Japan no, the whole world was covered with unfairness. Heroes are the one who reverse those situations. If you wanted to go talk with your friends at some hangout place after school, too bad. He's really laying it on thick. Izuku thought. I just hope he doesn't single me out here. Eraserhead's the kind of guy who do just that. For the next 3 years, UA will do all it can to hit you with one hardship after another. Go beyond. Plus ultra. As always said. Overcome it with all you've got. Alright, demonstration's over. The real thing starts now. Izuku looked around and. Test 1. 50-meter dash. Izuku focused one for all into his feet. 100% would have been too much, so he settled for his usual 20%. With a push, he propelled forward and took only 2 steps. He was able to get to 1.49 seconds, while Kitsuki came behind him at 3.13 seconds. Boy Deku. Kitsuki yelled. Don't get ahead of yourself just because you figured out your real quirk. You'll only get a spot below me, understood? Eh? Izuku said a glaring smirk. You actually think you'll get that one up on me? I'd like to see you try, Bakahatsu. Well, bad boy and bad attitude were butting heads. Aizawa took this an opportunity to rile his students up even more. You should take some pointers from these two. Well, I don't condone this kind of behavior. Their rival-like attitude is a good example of striving to reach the top. Like I said, if you want to stay in UA, you'll need to push yourselves even further than you think. When their squabble was over, Izuku took his time to study his classmates' quirks. He already what Four Eyes was capable of. Heck, the bespectacled teen's quirk was easy to spot since they were right there on his calves. Izuku noted that Iida could use the engines on his legs to boost his running speed. The green-haired boy noticed that the girl who ran or hopped next to Iida showed frog-like attributes. The next runners were Uraraka and a blonde with a huge tail. While Uraraka used her quirk to make her shoes clothes light, the kid with the tail used his extra appendage like a spring to give him an extra push. The next runners were the pink-skinned girl and a blonde kid wearing a belt. Wait, isn't he that kid from the practical exam? Izuku pondered. He can shoot lasers from that belt. I think his power can't be contained without the belt, must be a focusing device. While pondered on these things, Izuku also learned that the blonde couldn't shoot the laser for more than a second, and if he did he'd suffer a stomachache. Why the hell did he just say that? Test 2. Grip strength. This'll be easy. Izuku said as he focused one for all into his hand. Just like breaking an egg. Izuku then squeezed on the grip test machine. He smirked at his number displayed on the screen. 639 kilograms. 20% was still powerful enough to get good scores. If need be, he'd have to 100% as an emergency only, even if his body can heal. It wasn't worth losing stamina over. He looked over to the kid with 6 arms, Shoji. He used 3 of them on the grip machine and got 540 kilograms. He then took note of how Shoji's hands melded together. So, not only can he form other body parts on his hands, he can fuse all three of them together. I wonder if he can smack. Before Izuku could start a round of him infamous muttering, Jiru Kayaka came up from behind the boy and smacked him upside his head. If you start muttering even once, Jiru said with a warning tone, I'll tell everyone about the pink tutu. Izuku immediately slapped his hands over his mouth. Hahaha. Izuku heard Katsuki laughing. Pink tutu, hahaha. While trying to save himself from embarrassment, Izuku just looked around and tried to get an idea of the others' quirk were. He saw a rather bulky-looking kid with spiky brown hair pop a couple sugar cubes into his mouth before squeezing the grip test device. His score was just as impressive as the kid with 6 arms at over 400 kilograms. Test 3. Standing long jump. The kid with the laser quirk fared much better at this test, most of them did actually. The frog girl jumped right over, Katsuki propelled himself with a couple explosions, and Uraraka used her zero gravity to float right over the sandbox. Izuku simply employed the same maneuver he used at the 50-meter dash. He focused 20% on both his feet and leaped right over the sandbox. Test 4. Repeated side steps. Now this wasn't really a challenge, all he had to do was focus 20% into both his feet and jump. His ability to focus the energy of one for all was a little slow, but it got him good enough results nonetheless. Iida's technique was just weird. The teen had put his knees together as to make his engines face opposite directions, but the end result made him look like a sissy. Midoriya Izuku's words, not mine. Test 5. Ball throw. Uraraka managed to earn first in this test. She simply used her quirk to make the ball weightless and achieved the best possible score when Izawa showed an infinity symbol that came up on his handheld. Soon, it was Izuku's turn at the ball throw. 20% might not be good enough, it's strong but not as powerful as I'd like it to be. To hell with it, I'll just use my arm and be done with it. Izuku then reared back his arm and threw the ball, but to his shock the ball didn't soar through the air as he expected it to. 87 meters. Said the electronic voice of Izawa's handheld device. What the hell happened? Izuku thought as he stared down at his hand. I'm pretty sure I was using one for all just now. Wait, don't tell me. I erased your quirk. Izawa said from the side. Yeah, he would. Izuku thought as his face dropped. Izuku turned to face his teacher, but he was met with Izawa's piercing glare, his eyes were glowing red. His scarf and hair were floating up into air, and Katsuki could see a pair of goggles around Izawa's neck. Wait, those goggles. Katsuki said. Erased. I see, that guy's the erasure hero. Eraserhead. Eraser? Asked a boy with spiky red hair. I don't know him. I've heard of him. Said a girl with long black hair. He's an underground hero. I've only seen him on blogs. Said a boy with blonde hair that had a black lightning bolt on one side. They say he hates the media so he only works at night. I thought you were capable of doing better, you were trying to use your entire arm, weren't you? Izawa asked to use the capture cloth around his neck to reel Izuku in like a prize catch, the erasure hero then stared dead into Izuku's eyes. I don't really care if you have a healing quirk or not, but that kind of destructive power would be too much in a normal setting. You seriously need to learn how to exercise control when using that strength, or you might end up killing someone, hero or villain, by mistake. Izuku then remembered the things All Might told him. With one punch, I can level an entire city. I used to think that no one should have that kind of power, but I soon learned to control it, and I use this power every day to help those who are in need. The more you train a vessel, the more you'll be able to move the power freely. Izawa then let go of Midoriya. I've returned your quirk, you have 2 more turns for the ball throw. Hurry up and get it over with. With his hair hanging over his eyes, Midoriya thought long and hard about Izawa's words. He also thought about All Might's words. Control. Izuku thought as he thought to think of a way. I'll just use my fingers then, I've been using my entire hand and my knuckles since the beginning, but with the power right now, that's just too much. I swore that no one would ever get hurt again. Mom, I made you a promise and I intend to keep that promise. Izuku reared back his arm and focused his power into his fingers. I'll have to put more effort into controlling this power. Smash. Izuku yelled as he threw the ball into the air. The sheer power behind the throw was enough to cause the wind to blow out of control for a second. Izawa looked down at the device in his hand and saw the distance of the throw. 1.17 kilometers. Said the electronic voice of Izawa's handheld device. Hey sensei. Izuku said as he lifted up his hand, which started healing almost instantly. How's that for control? Cheeky brat. Izawa smirked. Since Bakugo already finished, let's move on to the next person. Izawa said as he spared a glance at the sandy blonde teen. Or do you think you can do better? The teen smirked. Of course I can, give me that ball. Katsuki stood in the circle again and tightened his grip on the softball. Oi, Deku. Don't cry if I get one place above you. Reeling back his hand, the boy focused and threw the ball as he yelled. Go to hell. Go to hell. Izuku's sweat dropped. 1.17 kilometers. Said the electronic voice of Aizawa's handheld device. Huh? What? Katsuki said in confusion. We got the same score, Dumbus. Izuku replied, to which Katsuki gaped at. The tests continued on like normal, with regular sit-ups, seated toe touch, and long-distance run. Once the tests were all finished, Aizawa gathered the students. Okay, I'll quickly tell you the results. The total is simply the marks you got from each test. It's a waste of time to explain verbally, so I'll show you the results all at once. Aizawa said as he activated a hologram on his handheld, which showed a list of the students and their scores. The following results were this. 1. Yayoi Rozumomo. 2. Todoroki Shoto. 3. Midoriya Izuku and Bakugo Katsuki, tied. 4. Ida Tenya. 5. Tokoyami Fumikage. 6. Shoji Mizo. 7. Shishida Jiroda. 8. Ejiro Mashirao. 9. Kirishima Ejiro. 10. Ashido Mina. 11. Uraraka Ichako. 12. Koji Koda. 13. Sato Rakido. 14. Asu Itsai. 15. Aoyama Yuga. 16. Shiro Hanta. 17. Kayaka Jiru. 18. Kaminari Denki. 19. Hagakure Turu. Sorry, but hey, cheer up. Ashido Mina said to the invisible girl standing next to her. There's always next year, right? It's okay, Sniffle, the invisible girl cried as she hugged the pink-skinned girl. I'll be fine, Sniffle. By the way, I lied about the whole expulsion thing. Aizawa said with a wicked grin. That was just a rational deception to draw out the upper limits of your quirks. What? Obviously. Momo said. It was clearly a lie. It should have been obvious if you'd have thought about it a little. The students didn't really take notice, but they weren't going to say anything. That was a little nerve-wracking, huh? Said a boy who had weird-looking elbows. I'll take up the challenge anytime. Said a kid with spiky red hair. Man. Izuku said. Tied again? Seriously? That's a damn shame. Katsuki said before grabbing the collar of Izuku's PE. Besides, don't think for a second that just because you have a strength quirk that you're better than me. Izuku grabbed Katsuki's arm. I don't think I'm better, I know I'm better. You wanna go? Katsuki yelled. Sure, how about I take you there myself? Izuku yelled back as the two teens butted heads. The other students weren't sure how to deal with this. Kayaka, however, shook her head in embarrassment. These guys were her best friends. So, the earphone jack quirk user decided to break up their squabble by stabbing their ear holes with her quirk. Aizawa sent a silent thank you to the punk girl. Break it up now, please. Aizawa said. Rubbing their ears, the boys simply nodded with a yes sir. With that, we're done, officially done here. Aizawa said. There are handouts with the curriculum and such in the classroom, so when you get back, look them over. Later. As classes ended, Izuku made his way over to the bike racks in front on the school. As the boy unchained his bike, he felt a hand on his shoulder. Hey Jiru. The greenette said without looking back. Need something? Yup. The punk girl said. Wanna hang out? Momo invited me and Uraraka to this cafe uptown. Sorry, but I've gotta go see my mom. Izuku said, giving Kayaka a look. You know how it is. Kayaka just nodded her head. Alright, I really wanted you to come along. Bakugo couldn't come because he had something to take care of. Send me the location of the cafe, and maybe I'll try to catch up when I'm done. Alright. Say hi to your mom for me. Izuku nodded his head as he got on his bike and pedaled away. In the afternoon, Midoriya skipped going home and simply took his bike and pedaled to Musatafu General Hospital. I'm finally a hero student, Mom. Izuku said as he took his seat by his mother's bedside. It's really cool too, I get to use my quirk freely. Well, technically I need a teacher to supervise me, but it's still awesome. I made some really great friends too, and Jiru's my classmate again. I bet you'd like to meet her one day too. She says hi, by the way. While talk to his mother, a knock was heard on the door. I hope you don't mind me barging in like this. It's fine, Dr. Shiroyama, you're always welcome. Izuku said as he stood up to greet the doctor. Is my mom still improving, Doc? The doctor nodded her head with a smile. She's in good shape. I still can't put an exact date on when she'll wake up, but recently I've seen signs that she might just come out of her coma within this year. Izuku's face brightened up upon hearing this, but then he suddenly went into a somber mood. I just wish I could use my healing to help her in some way. Yes, and you've been a great help here at the hospital by putting that healing ability to good use. Dr. Shiroyama replied. I just wish I could do more than just healing physical injuries. Izuku said. Yeah, it's unfortunate, but since a coma isn't a physical injury, but more of a one that affects the mind, psychologically, there isn't much that your healing ability can do. Dr. Shiroyama said. But cheer up, I'm sure if Inko knew about you helping out here in the hospital during your visits, she'd be even more proud of you. Thanks, Doc, I needed that. The following day the hero students were treated to regular classes like English, the subject was overseen by Present Mick. It was rather boring following the events of yesterday's Quirk assessment test, so boring in fact that some of the students were threatening to fall asleep. Hiro Kayaka, the resident punk girl, was bored out of her mind, she wanted to do something that would at least be more exciting than this. Looking to her left, she saw that Kitsuki was leaning his head in the palm of his left hand, bored out of his mind as well. Behind the sandy blonde, Izuku was bored but taking notes. "All right now," the voice hero said in a calm manner. "Which one of these English sentences is wrong?" Silence. "Everybody, heads up. Let's get this party started," the voice said, but in an over-the-top excited manner. Smirking to herself, Kayaka extended her earphone jack until it reached her green-haired friend. She proceeded to stab the appendage into Izuku's thigh, which caused him to jump with a yelp. "Oh, Midoriya," Present Mick said. "Good on you for volunteering, which sentence is wrong?" Izuku stood up and proceeded to give the answer. Number 4, the relative pronoun is in the wrong place. After which he sat down. He then glared at Kayaka and put his index finger to his neck and drew a line to emphasize the "you're dead" action. Kayaka just stuck her tongue out at him. To the girl's left, Kitsuki was shaking as he tried to hold in his laughter. Quirk apprehension test, things we have not seen but should have seen. Izuku and Kitsuki could only gape at the cannon that Yayoi Rozu created. She loaded the softball inside the cannon, lit the short fuse, and let the ball fly with a resounding boom. The ponytailed girl managed to come in second on the ball throw with a distance of 28 kilometers. "Boy, Aizawa-sensei?" Izuku asked, still in shock. "Is that even allowed?" "Anything goes as long as you stay inside the circle," Aizawa replied. "And besides, she used her quirk to create that cannon, so I can let it slide." Itsuki was still gaping at what he just saw. What the hell? First she makes a pole to vault over the sandbox, then she makes a vice clamp for the grip test, and now this. All within range of her quirk abilities. Aizawa replied. "Now shut up, Midoriya, you're next on the ball throw." Izuku and Kitsuki couldn't give any expression due to the fact that Yayoi Rozu had created a scooter for the long distance run. "Should I even say something about this?" Izuku said. "This has got to be against the rules somehow, right?" Kitsuki asked. "Again, since she used her quirk," Aizawa said. "I can allow it." "Okay." Izuku and Kitsuki replied with the blankest expression they could muster. Where did Jiro find this girl and how are they friends? Izuku thought. Midoriya Izuku was a little tired, mostly due to an empty stomach. His healing factor needed copious amounts of fuel in order to function properly, so the fact that Izuku was out of breath was a result of his lack of sustenance. It was 4:15 p.m., and he was slowly pedaling his bike to the cafe that Kayaka had told him about. When he got there, Izuku noted that the cafe looked almost like Magnetron's cafe at Wookiees. He then read the sign, which is the cafe's name. La Luna Cafe and Bistro. It was printed in cursive as to make it fancy, fits Momo's preference to a T. Izuku said as he chained his bike at a nearby bike rack. Making his way inside, Izuku noted some key differences to Magnetron's cafe. One was that this cafe was larger and there were more tables, another was that this cafe had a second floor, and another was that there were 2 front counters and had several people working behind them. Looking around, he saw Kayaka at a table by window waving to him. He walked over and noticed that Ichako wasn't seating at the table, but he also noted one more thing. What is he doing here? Greetings, Midoriya-kun. Iida Tenya said as he stood up. Hey. Izuku said as he looked to Kayaka. I thought it was just us. Oh yeah, about that. Uraraka invited him over. Kayaka said. By the way, where is she? Izuku asked. Restroom. Kayaka replied. Oh, Deku. You're here. Ichako said as walked up behind Izuku. Deku? Izuku questioned. Yeah, I heard Bakugo call you that at the fitness test. Uraraka said. It's probably your nickname, right? Yeah, but it's more of a name that he uses to make fun of me. Izuku said as he sat down. An insult name? Tenya said. Oh, sorry. Ichako said. I didn't know. That's alright. Izuku said. I'm used to it anyway, it's kinda like how I call him Bakahatsu. But. Ichako said. Deku kinda sounds like Takiru, so I kinda like it. Takiru, that means you can do it, huh? Sounds good. Izuku thought. Call me Deku then. Ayaka then sent Izuku a knowing look, to which boy just returned with a shake of his head. The punk girl wasn't done, however. She got on her phone and decided to talk to Izuku via her chat app. Hayaka. You and I both know the true meaning of that name. Izuku. It's better if they don't know, I'm not proud of my former life. Hey. Other kids, the ones you fought, still know that name. I know, but if they what's good for them, they'll stay away. Hey. I'm talking about the gangs, not the punks. I'll keep her safe, I'll be damned if I let anything like that happen again. Their conversation was ended when a waitress walked up to the table and presented several cake slices and a fresh cup of coffee, probably for Izuku, since everyone else had their drinks already. The teens spent their time just talking and getting to know one another that afternoon. Izuku even found that Four Eyes, excuse me, Iida wasn't an ass, he was just really earnest. He had the kind of attitude that would make a good leader. Along the way, they actually became, somewhat, friends in a way. I just hope Katsuki won't mind if we another member to the gang. 3 weeks before classes started at UA we see Midoriya Izuku sitting on the sofa in his apartment, in front of him was a coffee table, and there were several papers and letters on it. Akatani Kajiro, Izuku's uncle and legal guardian, walked by in his way to the kitchen. It was a rare off day for the martial arts trainer, and he was using this day off to look after his nephew. You sure are busy at this time of day, Izuku-kun, what are you up to? Oh, I need to go to City Hall to get my Quirk registration for the clothing allowance. Izuku said, but then it suddenly dawned on him about One for All. But wait, I'm already registered as Healing Factor, gah. What am I gonna do? If you're talking about your strength augmentation quirk, Kajiro said. You can simply re-register and update your status. You can do that? Izuku asked. Yes. Kajiro replied. Everyone is usually examined and registered all at once when they enter elementary and junior high, right? But there are cases where people discover their quirks aren't what they thought they were. So you're allowed to update it once or twice. For example, a person who can send out water from their body can discover that they're actually turning the moisture in the air into water. Izuku just nodded his head while listening to his uncle's explanation. The registration office won't accept outrageous changes though, so if I were you, I'd better come up with a plausible sounding explanation when you tell them that your healing quirk is actually an add-on to a latent strength augmentation quirk that you recently discovered. Kajiro said. I've known Toshinori-san for quite a while, so please try to keep your quirk on the down low, alright? Will do Uncle Kajiro, and thanks. Izuku said. You're welcome. Oh, by the way, I saw those 2 girls on your Instagram page. Kajiro said in a teasing manner. You sly devil you, 2 girls at once, what would your mother say? Izuku retaliated this by lunging and aiming a punch at his uncle, while sporting a smiling death glare. Urusei. Kajiro, however, caught Izuku's intended punch and threw him back. Is that all you can do? I thought I trained you better. That morning, the neighbors who lived next to the Midoriya Akatani apartment could only sigh in distress. The uncle and nephew were at it again with their usual sparring matches. But this time, the uncle must have said something to upset the nephew because all they could hear from the boy was a string of curses that could make even the most hardened villain blush. We now go back to the present date where Midoriya Izuku is sitting backwards on his chair while talking to the beast quirk user who sat behind him. The students of class 1 were waiting on their next teacher now that they were in the afternoon period. Man, lunch rush's cooking is too delicious. Izuku said with a smile. I couldn't get enough of it. That's quite rich coming from you, Midoriya Dono. Jirota said. You practically devoured 4 bowls of katsudon in one sitting. Izuku smiled and laughed sheepishly. Yeah, that's the thing about my quirk, it requires me to eat a lot of food just to stay fueled. And it's not like you didn't eat 3 servings of curry rice yourself. Hey now, I am a growing beast you know. Jirota said. I need sustenance as well. Suddenly a knock was heard on the door which caught the student's attention. I am. All Might said as he breezed through the doorway. Coming through the door like a normal person. What part of that entrance was normal? Izuku mentally face-palmed, but still, it was just the coolest thing to have the No. 1 hero All Might as their teacher. He then turned around in his seat. The students brightened up and marveled at the sight of the No. 1 hero in their classroom. It's All Might. Kaminari said. Wow, he really is a teacher. Kirishima added. That's a costume from the Silver Age, isn't it? Sai said. All Might then strutted into the classroom. Its style is so different, it's giving me goosebumps. Ajiro said. I teach basic hero training. All Might said. It is a subject where you train in different ways to learn the basics of being a hero. You'll be taking the most units in this subject. From where he sat, Izuku smiled. And this is where I can prove myself even more. All Might then struck a pose. Let's get right into it. This is what we'll do today, combat training. Combat? Katsuki said with a wide grin. Training? Izuku said with a smirk. And to go along with that are these. All Might said he pointed to the wall which opened out to reveal 20 individual cases marked 1 to 20. costumes made based on your quirk registrations and requests you sent in before school started. After you change, gather in ground beta. Yes sir. They say that clothes make a man. All Might said as the students of Class 1 walked into the faux city. But in this case it's the costume that makes the hero, because from now on you are heroes. Deku-kun. Ochako exclaimed. Your costume is awesome. Midoriya Izuku smiled. His hero costume consisted of a dark green full-body jumpsuit with red stripes running down the sides. He had on black shoulder supporters and black leg bracers, a utility belt that had 4 pouches, and around his neck was a metallic face breath guard. He also sported a pair of red heavy-duty running shoes and a pair of white fingerless boxing gloves. Thanks. Izuku said. My mom helped me design it when I was younger. I just recently made some modifications before sending my final design to a support company. It looks cool. Really down to earth. Ochako said as she rubbed the back of her head in slight embarrassment. I should have written what I wanted. Mine ended up being a skin-tight bodysuit. It's embarrassing. The hero course is awesome. Izuku said as he unintentionally stared. No. Snap out of it, you're no pervert that doesn't belong here. Meanwhile in Class B, a small kid with purple balls on his head sneezed. She looks good though. Thankfully, the green-haired teen wasn't caught staring, mostly because everyone else was admiring the hero costumes of the others. Well, you look good though. Izuku managed to get out. I like the design, really original. Ochako already had a pink tint on her face because of her costume, so she was quite lucky for that. But she smiled nonetheless and uttered a light thank you. Izuku looked around and took note of everyone else's costumes. Jirota's costume, however, was just a pair of pants and a pair of stylized goggle shades, and around his neck was what looked to be a collar. For some reason Jirota seemed a little taller. Izuku could have sworn he and the beast quirk user stood at the same height, but looking at him now it felt like he had grown a couple more inches. This caused the greenette to wonder if the beast's sudden growth spurt was part of his quirk. Whoa, she's quite daring. Izuku thought when he saw Momo's costume. Is a costume like that when allowed? As the students had finally gathered, All Might began his class. Alright, it's time to start your battle training. Sir. Tenya said as he raised his hand. Wait, is that 4 eyes? Huh, his costume actually looks kinda cool. This is a battle center from the entrance exam. Tenya said. So will we be conducting urban battles again? Not quite, we're going to move ahead 2 steps. All Might said holding up 2 fingers. Most of the time, when fighting villains, the fights take place outside, but if you look at the total numbers, atrocious villains appear indoors at a higher rate. Imprisonment, house arrest, backroom deals in the society filled with heroes, truly intelligent villains hide in the shadows. For this class, you'll be split into villains and heroes and fight 2-on-2 indoor battles. Without basic training? Sayu asked. This is a real battle to understand those basics. However, the key this time is that there's no robot you can just beat up. The students then barraged All Might with several questions. How will wins and losses be determined? Leave it to Yaoi Rozu to ask something smart. Can we beat them up anyway? Itsuki, no. Will the punishment be expulsion like with Aizawa-sensei? Don't worry, All Might isn't like that. How shall we be split up? I hope it'll be in pairs. Doesn't this cape look fabulous? What the actual fuck? Izuku thought, sparing a glance at the shining knight beside him. Calm down, I'll get to your questions. All Might said looking a little excited, or was that distress? The pro hero then pulled out a small sheet of paper. Now listen here. The script. Don't tell me this is his first time teaching. The situation is that the villains have hidden a nuclear weapon somewhere in their hideout. The heroes are trying to dispose of that. The heroes need to either capture the villains or recover the nuclear weapon in the allotted time of 15 minutes. All Might then held up a box. Teams and opponents will determine by drawing lots. They're being decided so haphazardly. Tenya asked. There's nothing wrong with that. Izuku said. Pros often have to put together makeshift teams with heroes from other agencies. This is probably a scenario to mimic just that. I see. The discernment to look ahead. Tenya then bowed. Please pardon my rudeness. Asking questions isn't being rude, what's with you Iida, I mean seriously. It's fine. Let's do this quickly. The following teams were. Team A. Midoriya Izuku and Uraraka Ochako. Team B. Todoroki Shoto and Shoji Mizo. Team C. Yaoi Rozu Momo and Jiru Kayaka. Team D. Bakugo Katsuki and Iida Tenya. Team E. Ashido Mina and Aoyama Yuga. Team F. Sato Rakido and Kota Koji. Team G. Kaminari Denki and Shishida Jirota. Team H. Tokoyami Fumikage and Asui Tsai. Team I. Ejiro Mashirao and Hagakure Toru. Team J. Shiro Hanta and Kirishima Ejiro. Wow, it must be fate. Ochako said. I'm counting on you. Deku-kun. Izuku smiled and nodded his head. Don't worry, I'll make sure we win. The first teams to fight will be. All Might said as he reached into the hero and villain boxes. These guys. All Might yelled. He pulled out a black and white ball from each box. Team A will be the heroes and Team D will be the villains. Everyone else, please head to the monitor room. Yes sir. Boy, Deku. Kitsuki said with glare and smirk. Prepare to lose. I was just about to say the same thing. Izuku said. He rammed his forehead on Kitsuki's. As bad boy and bad attitude butted heads again, making her way to the monitor room, Jiru Kayaka could only facepalm at her friend's antics. Why can't they just be normal? Then again, they're less boring this way. All Might also couldn't help but share a little in the punk girl's embarrassment. I really have to work on his behavior more. All Might then ushered the villain and hero teams to a nearby building, which would serve as the test area. Alright. Villain team, go in first and set up. All Might said. In 5 minutes, the hero team will break in, and the battle test will start. Yes sir. Iida Shonen, Bakugo Shonen, learn to think from the perspective of the villains. All Might said as the two made their way into the building. This is pretty close to a real battle. Go all out and don't be afraid to get hurt. Yes sir. Tenya said. Tell that to the guy with a healing factor. Kitsuki said as he pointed Izuku behind him. Of course, but things go too far, I will have to stop it for safety reasons. All Might added. Inside the building, we see Tenya and Kitsuki walking up to a huge rocket-shaped bomb. Even if this is training, it pains me to become a villain. Tenya said. Oh shut up. Kitsuki said. What would your precious upperclassmen say if they heard you say that? They probably had to take the same battle training test too, you know. Tenya flinched. You're right, how could I have let such a thought enter my mind? The ones who studied before us must have been tasked to take one villain roles as well. I must follow in their stead if I truly wish to become a hero. Kitsuki simply developed a tick mark on his forehead as he rolled his eyes. The sandy blonde walked around the room and thought of something. Tenya then walked up to the bomb. So our job is to protect this? He then knocked on the so-called nuclear device. Oh, it's actually hollow on the inside. Hey. Kitsuki said. Listen here, I've got a plan. Meanwhile, outside of the building we see Izuku and Ochako making out like crazy. Wait, what? No. That's not supposed to happen yet. Sorry about that, haha, I'm getting ahead of myself. Ahem. Continue reading. The brunette and brunette and were currently discussing their plans for marriage. Izuku turns and glares at the author. Will you focus on the damn story? The author shakes head repeatedly. Give me a moment, I think I need a cold shower. A few minutes later. Alright, forgetting all that. We see Izuku and Ochako discussing their plan on how to retrieve the bomb or otherwise capture the villains. Do you think that will work? Ochako asked. 60 to 70% I say. Izuku replied. Kitsuki knows my fighting style all too well, so if we're lucky he's gonna come down and face me head on. I can distract him, but you're gonna have to retrieve that bomb. I'll do it. Ochako said. Iida-kun is my only worry, he's too fast. Don't worry, as long as we stick to the plan. Izuku said as he put on his face guard. What could go wrong? I say nothing. We're a team, aren't we? Ochako said with ever so bubbly attitude. Let's do our best. Underneath his mask, Izuku smiled. Now, let's start the indoor person-to-person combat training with Team A and Team D. The voice of All Might could be heard through a speaker system. Meanwhile in the monitor room. Okay, everyone, you should think as well. Midoriya Shonen, here, you are no more than a single student. All Might thought as he placed an earpiece in his auditory cavity. I'll have to grade you strictly, without playing favorites. At the test area building, we see Izuku and Ochako sneaking in through an open window. We've infiltrated successfully. Ochako whispered. There are a lot of blind spots here, so let's be careful. Izuku replied. The pair then spent some time sneaking around the building's second floor area while looking around and keeping check on their surroundings. Shouldn't be using too much power in here. Kitsuki can take one my normal punches, but at 20%, I could seriously hurt him. There's also Iida and Uraraka here too. I can't be too reckless otherwise they could get hurt, never mind the fact that I can heal them anyway. I'll just try to focus on 5% or maybe even lower. Continuing their sneak approach, Izuku also thought about several strategies just in case Kitsuki figures out part of their plans. He had at least 13 notebooks of carefully detailed quirks and applications. Izuku's ability to analyze situations could prove to be more handy than ever right here. While pondering on his thoughts, Izuku was suddenly alerted to the sound of clothes ruffling from what sounded like a jump. Then he saw Kitsuki leap from behind a corner of the building. Die. Kitsuki yelled as he extended his right arm, the sandy blonde, then fired off an explosion that blew up as soon as it made contact with the wall. Izuku acted quickly, he grabbed Ichako and jumped back, he quickly let go of the girl and turned to face her. "You alright?" Ichako nodded and stood up. Itsuki waved away the dust cloud caused by his explosion. "Come on Deku, don't dodge." With a smirk, Izuku turned to face his friend. "I figured you'd come after me first." He looked to Ichako and gave her a look. The girl nodded and ran off. Itsuki saw this. "So it's just you and me now, huh?" Izuku cracked his knuckles. "Yup, looks like it's you and me now." Meanwhile in the monitor room. "A surprise attack from the start," Jiroda said in surprise. "Bakugo, that's cheating." Kirishima said, pounded his fist into his palm. "A surprise attack isn't manly at all. A surprise attack is a strategy, too," All Might said. "They're in the middle of a real battle right now." Midoriya dodged it. Mina exclaimed. "There goes Bakugo," Kaminari said. "He's just gonna rush into it. Back the test area. I won't do so much damage that this fight gets stopped, but I'm gonna get close." Kitsuki yelled as lunged at Izuku. Izuku however dodged and grabbed Kitsuki's right arm. "Too easy," Izuku said as he then body slammed Kitsuki into the ground. "You always start with a right swing." As Kitsuki hit the ground he grit his teeth in pain but smirked. "I figured you would do that." Kitsuki then aired his left arm at Izuku and fired off a relatively small explosion which kicked up a small dust cloud. "Oh shit," Izuku yelled, barely getting enough time to jump back. When the dust settled, Izuku was still standing, okay, but was smoldering a little. "I'm getting slow, I forgot to take that into account." In the monitor room. "Whoa. That was awesome," Kaminari said. Midoriya was able to get an upper hand on Bakugo, Tokoyami said. But Bakugo-chan also got in a good hit as well. Sayu added. "Yes, the ability to discern your opponent's attacks and then turning the situation around." Back in the test area building. "So that's your plan, huh?" Kitsuki said. "Send the gravity girl to try and get the bomb." "Not gonna work." "Yeah, I figured out your plan as well," Izuku said. "DCH, nothing gets by you, damn nerd," Kitsuki said. "It's one thing to keep you down here, it's another thing to count on 4 eyes to make sure gravity girl doesn't get the bomb." Izuku smirked. "Well, I'll just have to beat down your ass so I can get it myself." "Let's see you try," Kitsuki said as he launched himself forward with an explosion. He then aimed a punch at Izuku's upper body with his left hand. Izuku saw and blocked this, but Kitsuki retaliated with a swing from his right. The two teens then proceeded to exchange hit after hit by blocking, dodging, and parrying each blow with their own distinct martial art style. In the monitor room. The students were awed by the display of Izuku and Kitsuki's fighting skills. Even though they knew that both teens had tied for third place in the fitness test, watching them fight and display such an amazing skill set still left them with jaws wide open. "Man," Sato said. "Am I glad these two weren't put together as team, if they were, they'd practically be unstoppable." "No kidding," Ejiro added. "They possess the most destructive quirks among all of us." "Yeah, that paired up with their fighting skills," Shiro said. "These two could likely give even a pro hero a run for their money." Test area building. With Tenya, we see the armored teen guarding the bomb as per instructed by his teammate. But as soon he heard a couple explosions downstairs, he immediately contacted the sandy blonde through his earpiece. "Hey, Bakugo-kun. What's happening down there, give me your status." "Just shut up and defend, Deku's partner is coming your way, stick to the plan damn it. I'm really having a blast right now," Kitsuki yelled as he shut off the earpiece. He hung up. Tenya said. "Alright, stick to the plan. No doubt that Midoriya-kun possess skills that only Bakugo-kun can fend off, but still, I feel so useless doing nothing here." Monitor room. "What was Bakugo saying?" Kirishima asked. "Can't really tell with just the camera in a fixed position with no sound. He's talking to his partner over a small wireless radio," All Might explained. "You can bring that plus the building's floor plan and this capture tape. Once you wrap this around your opponent, it shows that you've captured them. The time limit is 15 minutes, Mina said. "And the heroes don't know where the bomb is located, right?" "Yes. The heroes are clearly at a disadvantage here," Mina added. "Heroes should be able to turn the tables on whatever predicament they're in," All Might said. "Besides, didn't Izawa-sensei tell you, too? You know, here we go. Plus ultra," All Might yelled in chorus with the students. But then. "Monsieur, Bakugo is Aoyama," said pointing to the monitor. All Might turned to see what it was. Test area building. Itsuki was now using his legs in tandem with his explosions to deliver hard kicks left and right. Izuku stopped blocking and tried to dodge, this caused the sandy blonde to gain a bit of an advantage for a while. Izuku took a few hits, but was relatively okay enough to continue dodging. In tandem with his explosions, Kitsuki was flying all over the place from the floor to the ceiling and from wall to wall. With those movements he also delivered and got a few good hits onto Izuku, who was blocking instead of dodging. Izuku managed to figure out Kitsuki's attack pattern and his jumping though, he reached out his right hand and grabbed onto Kitsuki's left bicep, he pulled the sandy blonde in and shouldered him in the gut. Had that been a normal person, they'd have been knocked out or would have at least puked their guts out. But Kitsuki was a tough one, he took the blow easily, but managed to stay on his feet without staggering even once. Izuku rubbed his shoulder. Man, that vest is thicker than it looks. Custom-made polymer and carbon fiber cloth, similar to Kevlar and Teflon. Kitsuki replied. Costumes would be stupid without functionality, right? Oh, great, you just had to take my advice. Izuku said he thought back to how he explained to Kitsuki about costume functionality in his hero journals. Me and my big mouth. So? Kitsuki said. Should we stop playing around? Why not? Izuku replied. Feeling each other out is boring anyway. Monitor room. Don't you think you should stop this, All Might? Kaminari asked. Yeah, Bakugo and Midoriya are going too overboard. Kirishima added. It's fine for now. All Might replied, which put a bit of confusion in the students. But why? Hagakure asked. Midoriya could get seriously injured with those explosions. Midoriya Shonen has a healing factor. All Might said. Which is why Bakugo Shonen is going this far, he knows he can fight like this without worrying about Midoriya Shonen's safety. The worried students blew a sigh of relief. Besides, I don't think I should even tell them that those two aren't even fighting seriously. But still. Zero said. Bakugo looks like a wild animal when fighting. Test area building. With Tenya, we see the boy with his arms crossed, the boy could hear and feel the explosions downstairs. Bakugo-kun is really getting into it. Tenya said. I'm little jealous of his determination though. If that's the case with him, then I must also devote myself to being a villain. That's right. This is another trial to turn me into a man who will not bring shame to the Iida family. Meanwhile, Ichako was hiding one of the pillars in the same room. She was a little cautious because Tenya was a very capable person. But then. Become a villain. Be dyed with evil in order to become a hero. Tenya said. I am. Extremely evil. Bwahahaha. Ichako wasn't able to control herself as she let out a snort while trying to hold back her laughter. He's taking this so seriously. Tenya noticed this and turned to face the girl. Have you arrived, Uraraka-kun? Ichako jumped back in surprise, but eventually stepped out from behind the pillar. I knew that Midoriya-kun would send you up here by yourself the instant you encountered Bakugo-kun. Tenya said, pointing to the girl in overdramatic way. Your quirk allows you to make the objects you touch float. That's why, before you arrived, I put away all the things on this floor. Now you won't be able to play your little tricks. You have blundered, hero. Tenya then broke out into maniacal laughter. He's starting to look like a villain. Ichako said. Meanwhile, a couple floors below. Izuku and Kitsuki shivered, which ceased their fight for a second. What the fuck was that? Kitsuki said. That felt like someone's taking things way too seriously. Izuku replied. The two teens shrugged it off before lunging at one another again. While they fought, Ichako spoke into Izuku's earpiece. Deku-kun. I'm in the middle of the 5th floor, but Iida-kun found me, how's it going down there? I'm not in position yet, Uraraka, try to hold on a little longer. Izuku said as he gained some distance between him and Kitsuki. Okay. I'll keep Iida distracted for a few seconds. Ichako replied. While the teens were distanced, the grenade-shaped gauntlet on Kitsuki's right hand glowed red. Good. Kitsuki said with a smirk. It's loaded. Wait, don't tell me that thing isn't just for aesthetics. Izuku asked. No. Kitsuki said in dangerously quiet tone. You already know that I secrete a nitroglycerin-like sweat from the sweat glands on the palm of my hand and make it explode. Kitsuki then pulled back the grenade safety spoon, which revealed a pin. If the support company made this thing the way I asked, then these gauntlets will store my excess sweat inside then, and… Isn't that going a little too overboard? All Might could stop the fight, you know. Izuku asked as put his arms up in defense. I hope he won't, I just wanted to test this thing out on you, since you can heal right. Kitsuki said, a crazy grin on his face. If that's the case, then bring it. Izuku said with a wicked grin. Monitor room. Don't tell me that. All Might sensei. Jiroda yelled as he too noticed the gauntlets. Bakugo Dono is going way too overboard now. There's no way Midoriya Dono's healing factor can survive that. Bakugo Shonen, wait. All Might yelled. Test area building. But it was too late, Kitsuki had already pulled the pin. He'll be alright. Not even this can kill him. Izuku smirked under his face guard as he was caught directly in the middle in the explosion. The blast was so powerful that the tremor it caused was felt even in the monitor room. This is supposed to be a class. What the heck is Bakugo doing? Kirishima yelled. Shonen. Midoriya Shonen. All Might yelled. Back at the test area, a huge dust cloud enveloped the area. But as soon as the dust settled, we see Izuku still standing, his hands were together, and his body was smoldering. Katsuki saw this and clicked his tongue. I thought you were gonna take it. Improvised special move. Shockwave, clap. Izuku said. Man, I'd be toast if I didn't have this strength augmenting quirk. That and this fireproof jumpsuit. Upstairs on the 5th floor. Bakugo-kun, answer me. Tenyu yelled into his earpiece. Did you do that? What in the world did you do? Explain yourself. This is my chance. Ochako thought as ran in the direction of the bomb. If I retrieve the weapon, we can win. I'll just have to switch to Deku-kun's plan B for now. Tenyu noticed this however and ran as well to block the girl. I won't let you, hero. Ochako then touched the tips of her fingers together, as soon as gained weightlessness, she leaped into the air. I just need to touch the weapon itself for it to count as being retrieved. And she can make herself float now, too, Tenyu asked. In one swift motion, Tenyu activated his engines and grabbed the weapon before Ochako could even land on it. She fell and flipped a few times before landing hand on the floor and stopping at a nearby wall. Your quirk is not a threat if you cannot touch anything. Tenyu said. I'll hold out until time runs out. He then laughed maniacally. He's too serious about this. Ochako thought. But still, looks like I'll have to wait on Deku-kun if we really want to win. What's taking him so long? Monitor room. Sensei. You should stop them. Kirishima said. That Bakugo's really crazy. He's gonna kill him, regardless of Midoriya's healing factor. Bakugo Shonen, be glad Midoriya Shonen is alright. But the next time you use that, I'll the fight and your team will lose. All Might said. To attack on such a large scale inside is inviting the destruction of the stronghold you should be protecting. That is a foolish plan for both the heroes and the villains. You will lose points for it. Test area building. Yeah. Katsuki said with a grin. I just wanted to test this thing out anyway. Man, this gauntlet really packs a punch. I'm pissed that you blocked it though. Izuku looked around. I think I'm in a good spot, I just need to bring Kak in here. Okay, I think we should end this. Yeah, we should. Katsuki then lunged at Izuku by way of an explosion from his hands. You first. Sucker. Izuku thought as he blocked Katsuki's attack. Monitor room. Wait. Jirota said. Now that I think about it, from their positions, Uraraka Dono is right above where Midoriya Dono is. What about it? Kaminari asked. Midoriya Dono seems to be lining himself up to his partner location. You're right, I wonder they're planning. Test area building. As Katsuki came in close, Izuku tightened his fist. Sorry Kaken. Time to stop playing around. Izuku blocked 3 of Katsuki's punches, but took a roundhouse kick to his left side. Once he was close enough, Izuku focused 5% on Ofa in his right hand and punched Katsuki in the gut. The sandy blonde doubled over in pain, but because of his polymer vest, Katsuki was able to stay standing. Izuku then called Ochako over his earpiece. Go to the pillar by the windows and wait for it. Gotcha. Ochako replied. Over and out. Not so fast. Katsuki growled as he grabbed Izuku's right arm. Using several small explosions, Katsuki, in a couple of swift motions, flipped Izuku around, grabbed him by the left arm from behind, and slammed Izuku into the ground. 1 minute and 40 seconds remaining. All Might announced from the speakers. Like I thought, not enough time, looks like I'll really have to do it. Izuku thought as he focused 10% of Ofa into his hands. He propelled himself up and rammed his body head first into Katsuki again, head-butting the blonde, but this time with more force. Katsuki growled back a cough as he doubled over in pain. Izuku got to his feet and caught Katsuki with his left arm, he then managed to wrap a long string of capture tape around Katsuki's torso. Uraraka, now. Izuku yelled. Upstairs, Ochako grabbed onto the pillar that Izuku had told her earlier. Deku, team. Katsuki strained. Sorry. Izuku said as he focused all 100% of Ofa in his right arm and aimed it at the ceiling. Smash. The shockwave then erupted out of Izuku's arm and blasted through the ceiling of the 2nd floor, but the force was so strong that it made its way through the whole building. Upstairs, Iida held onto the weapon as the shockwave blew through the floor. He then saw Ochako picking up the pillar she had been holding onto like a bat. Sorry, Iida-kun. Improvised special move. Comet home run. Ochako yelled as she swung the pillar to bat the debris. The rocks then flew like projectiles over to his side of the room, which caused Tenyu cover himself. You called it a home run, Tenyu yelled. While the team was distracted, Ochako jumped using her quirk to float over to the weapon. Release. Ochako said as she landed on the weapon. Retrieved. No. The weapon. Tenyu yelled, which echoed all the way down to the second floor. Damn it. Kitsuki said as looking up, clutching his stomach in pain. That's what you were planning from the start? No. Izuku replied, looking up as well. We were running out of time, this was a backup plan. In the monitor room, All Might was smirking, but no one could tell since he was always smiling. The students were awed by the shockwave that tore through the building. Hero team wins. All Might announced through the speakers. The sandy blonde grabbed Izuku's shoulder as he fell to the ground, dragging Greenet down with him. You are a certifiable dumbus. Izuku just grinned as he touched Kitsuki's shoulder with his good hand. A faint green light started to glow from Izuku's fingers. Nah, we both are. Hahaha. Izuku's other hand was already healing. It slowly turned from an ugly shade of discolored purple flesh to a healthy shade of pink flesh. DCH. Kitsuki scoffed with a smile. Back in the monitor room. Why are they smiling? Kirishima asked. Midoriya won, but is why Bakugo smiling like that? They had a good fight, I guess. Kayaka said. I've known those two for a while, they like to test their fighting skills on one another. You could probably call this a victory for them both. The battle of the heart between two rivals then. Tokoyami said in a sagely tone. Back in the test area, Tenyu was packing over the side of Ichako, rejecting the contents of her stomach again. Later, when the two teams were gathered in the monitor room, Izuku, Ichako, Kitsuki and Tenyu were standing in line. Izuku was holding Ichako's hand, this was to help soothe her stomach pain. The hero team won. All Might said. Well, even if I say that, the MVP for this battle was Iida Shonen. The teen in question gasped in surprise. It's not the winners, Ichako or Midoriya. Sayu asked. Well. Why is that? Does anyone know? All Might yelled as he raised his arm. Yes, All Might sensei. Momo said, raising her hand. That is because Iida-san adapted the most to the context of the training. Correct. All Might said. From the watching the match. Momo continued. It appeared that Bakugo-san, even though he and Iida-san orchestrated a plan, acted on his own because of his rivalry with Midoriya-san. Izuku and Kitsuki looked at each other. Was it that obvious? Kitsuki whispered. Izuku just shrugged. And as All Might sensei said earlier. Momo continued. It is foolish to launch a large-scale attack indoors. In the same way, taking into consideration the damage he caused, Midoriya-san's plan was also rash as it could have caused injuries outside of the building with debris and rocks flying everywhere. As for Uraraka-san, she let her guard down mid-battle, and her final attack was too reckless. If she treated the hollow folk bomb as a real weapon, she would not have been able to do something so dangerous. Iida-san had prepared for his opponent's arrival and assumed it would be a fight over the weapon, which made him late in responding to the final attack. When he heard this, Tenyu could help but smile as he felt an immense sense of pride in being praised. Momo wasn't done yet, however. The hero team only won because they took advantage of the fact that this was training. They were practically breaking the rules. Kitsuki and Izuku shared another look. And I thought your analysis skills were over the top. Kitsuki whispered. Izuku just kept a passive-looking face. She said more than I expected. All Might thought as he shook, not knowing how to respond to this. Well, Iida Shonen could be more relaxed, but well, that was correct. We should always start with the basics to develop depth of learning. Otherwise, we cannot become top heroes. Alright everyone, let's change location and start the second match. Tackle this training after thinking about what we just talked about. All Might said as he drew the next set of hero and villain teams. Yes sir. The battles went on with the next hero team being Team B and the villain team being Team I. Staring at the pure display of power that Todoroki used to win the match, Izuku and Kitsuki glowered at the screen. That guy's gonna be quite the challenge for us, don't you think? Izuku asked. Yeah, he'll put up one heck of a fight, that's for sure. Kitsuki replied. Meanwhile, Momo was blushing up a storm. No one saw this since the room was darkened. In her mind she was chastising herself for saying such things against Izuku. It couldn't be helped, she was just giving her honest opinion about the match, and she hoped Izuku would be mad at her. As the afternoon progressed, Izuku kept taking mental notes of his classmates and their quirks. He noted that Momo and Kayaka worked quite well together by barricading the entrance with steel beams. Izuku also noted that Jiroda was like a tank, but he needed a driver, since his beast quirk would make him give in to his more primal side. Later, once the battles were all done. Good work everyone. All Might said as he and students gathered in front of the exit. We're lucky that there weren't any major injuries, even though you all took this so seriously. You did a really good job for your first training class. To have such a proper class after Izawa sensei's class, it's kind of anticlimactic. Sayu said with her classmates all nodding in agreement, even Kitsuki was bobbing his head up and down. We're free to have proper classes as well. All Might said. Well then, I must review the results with the other teachers to decide your grades. Change and return. To the classroom. All Might yelled as he broke into a sprint through the exit. Izuku's sweat dropped. I guess he's about to hit his time limit. All Might's amazing. Kaminari exclaimed. Why was he in such a hurry though? Ejiro asked. They then exited the training area and made their way back to the classroom. Throughout the day, Izuku got more acquainted with his fellow classmates. They were really impressed by his and Kitsuki's martial arts skill and fighting prowess. Despite being admonished by Momo a little, Izuku felt in good spirits as he and Kitsuki made a couple of friends that day. As the class ended, Izuku was again bombarded by questions regarding his quirk and fighting skills. The group that surrounded his and Kitsuki's desk were making quite a ruckus. You guys are too loud. Tokoyami said. Tokoyami-kun. Tenya said as he made his over to the bird-headed teen. That desk is not a chair. Get off immediately. It's not that big a deal, is it? Kayaka asked. Tenya flinched. What's with those hand gestures, anyway? Ejiro added. You people. Tenya said. I cannot condone actions that disrespect the desks the great men and women who are our upperclassmen once used. Now you're too loud. Tokoyami said. That guy never wavers, does he? Izuku said with a sweat drop. The next day. The media, having heard of All Might being a teacher at UA, were gathered in droves in front of the prestigious school, hoping to get anything they could. Izuku just rolled his eyes as he walked up the gates, but he was suddenly stopped by a reporter. You there, please tell us, how are All Might's classes? Izuku inwardly smirked. Hell do I know, I'm from the business course. The report and the other media team backed away from Izuku like he was a plague. Making his way inside the school, Izuku laughed a little to himself. Good work on yesterday's combat training. Aizawa said to his students. I saw the videos and results. But I'm far from impressed. Bakugo and Midoriya, I'm talking to you too. The brunette and the sandy blonde straightened up at their names being singled out. In terms of power, your quirks are the most destructive. Aizawa stated. I want you two to exercise more control. You're equally talented in the use of your quirks, but please, do us a favor and learn to control yourselves next time, understood? The two teens just nodded their heads and replied a yes sir. Now let's get down to homeroom business. Sorry about the late notice, but today. As always said. I'll have you decide on a class representative. This announcement was then met with each student wanting to do the job. In a normal class, students might feel like they're just taking on daily duties. But here in the hero course, it's a role that allows one to practice being a top hero by leading a group. From his seat, Izuku was looking around. He didn't particularly want to be a class rep, all he wanted to be was a hero. He felt like duties like this would be nothing more than a waste of time for him. And besides, who'd vote the resident bad boy as class representative? But who know, it might be fun to boss the others around. Silence, please. Tenya yelled, which caused the student to suddenly go quiet. It is a job with the serious responsibility of leading others. It is not a job for just anyone who wants to do it. It is a calling that requires the trust of those around you. If we want to use democracy to decide on a true, then we should hold an election to choose one. Your hand is raised the highest. Izuku yelled, accompanied by his classmates. Why did you suggest that? Denki asked. We haven't known each other for that long. Sayu said. So, how can we have trust or anything? If that's the case, and everyone votes for themselves. Kirishima added. Don't you think that is precisely why whoever receives multiple votes here can be truly considered the most suitable person? Tenya explained as he turned for Aizawa, who zipped himself in his sleeping bag. I don't care, as long as you decide before homeroom is over. The caterpillar said. He fell to the ground in slumber. Thank you very much. Tenya replied. Izuku looked at Kitsuki, who looked back. They then shook their heads. They both knew Tenya was a capable student, but he was way too diligent on everything if his hand movements were anything to go by. Later, after the votes were tallied and names were written down. What the how? Izuku thought as he stared at the blackboard. Underneath his name was Momo's with 2 votes. No way. Kitsuki yelled as he turned to face his green-haired friend rival. Deku. How the hell did you get 4 votes? Who voted for him? Well, it's better than voting for you. Shiro said. We'd rather not have a class rep with a shitty attitude. Kayaka said with a smirk. Akatsuki growled as he pointed to Izuku. That doesn't make sense, he's just about the same bad attitude as I am. Izuku smirked and put on his best kind expression. Out of nowhere a halo and a heavenly light suddenly appeared over his head. Kakin. He said, a soothingly sweet voice. This just proves that even though I'm a bad boy, I still have my good points. Team. Kitsuki growled as he sprouted devil horns and a pointed tail. This was followed by a demonic aura surrounding the blonde. Ichako, meanwhile, just stared off to the side while whistling a soft tune. Tenya just sat in his seat, upset that no one voted for him and his name wasn't written on the board. 0 votes. I knew that would happen. That is only to be expected of a person's calling. You voted for someone else, huh? Momo said. But you wanted to do it too. Sato said. What are you trying to do, Iida? Todoroki just closed his eyes. After all that, Izuku and Momo were called to stand in front of the classroom. Then, the class rep is Midoriya and deputy class rep will be Yaoi Rozu. Aizawa said. Izuku let out a sigh. Well. Izuku said as the halo suddenly appeared above his head again. Thanks for voting for me guys, I'll be sure to live up to the position you put me in. I shall also do the same. Momo said. This might not be so bad. Sayu said. After all's said and done, Midoriya can be pretty fired up anyway. Kirishima said. And Yaoi Rozu was cool when we were going over the battle results. Later at the lunch rush cafeteria. Wow. There's a lot of people here today too. Ichako marveled as she looked around the cafeteria. That's because everyone in the hero course, support course, and business course meets in the same place. This rice is so delicious. Ichako said. You can say that again. Izuku said as he polished off his second bowl of katsudon. Midoriya-kun. Tenya said. You're eating quite a lot again. Izuku then let out a sigh. Even though you guys chose me a class rep, I don't know if I'm qualified for it. You are. Ichako replied. It'll be fine. Tenya said. Your courage and judgment at critical moments make you worth following. That's why I voted for you. But didn't you want to be class rep too, Iida-kun? Ichako said. I mean, you've got glasses and everything. This girl just talks without thinking. I kinda figured that out when I didn't your name on the board. Izuku said. You too, Uraraka. The brunette smiled sheepishly at this. Wanting to do it and being suitable for it are different issues. Tenya replied. I merely did what I judged to be correct. Merely? Izuku and Ichako questioned. You don't usually use that word. Izuku said. Oh, that's. I've been thinking. Ichako said. You're a rich kid, aren't you, Iida-kun? Tenya flinched. I tried to change the way I talk because I didn't want to be called that. Izuku and Ichako stared. The girl did it out of curiosity, while our bad boy did it out of his teasing nature. Tenya sighed. He then explained about how his family had been a hero family for generations and that he was the second son to a pro-hero father. He then went on to describing his relationship with the turbo hero. Ingenium, Tenya proudly said that he was Ingenium's younger brother. This caused Izuku to smile and awe for once. He even described the hero's agency, number of sidekicks, and how the hero was admired and really popular. While they spoke and told each other about their goal for the future, an alarm suddenly blared throughout the school. There has been a level 3 security breach. An automated computer voice announced through the alarm. All students please evacuate outdoors promptly. Hey. Izuku said, grabbing the attention of the student sitting next to Tenya. What's a level 3 security? It means someone is trespassing on school grounds. The student replied. An intruder? Tenya exclaimed. I've never seen anything like this happen in the 3 years that I've been here, you guys should hurry too. The student said as he rushed out of his seat. Due to the alarm, Izuku, Tenya, and Ichako were caught up in a stampede of panicked students. Ow, I'm being squeezed here. Ichako said. What's going on all of a sudden? Hold on. Izuku said as he pulled the girl close and held her safe in his arms. Iida, get to windows, try to see what's going on outside. The bespectacled teen nodded his head and did as he was told. It's the press. Tenya said as he slowly shuffled his way back to his friends. They broke through the UA barrier. Arg. Izuku growled. What's wrong with them? Izuku looked around and tried to think of something. He then saw the exit sign. Izuku looked at Tenya. Iida, I've got an idea. Izuku said as he motioned to the exit. You thinking what I'm thinking? Iida nodded. Uraraka. Izuku said. Make Iida float. The girl reached her hand and did as was told. As soon as Tenya was airborne, he lifted up his pant legs and used his engines to propel him toward the exit sign. Everyone, everything's fine. Tenya yelled, which caught the students' attention. It's just the media. There's nothing to panic about. Everything's fine. This is UA, let us act in a way befitting the best of the best. This managed to calm everyone down. Izuku let out a sigh of relief as he let go of Ichako. Glad that mess was settled out. Ichako, however, was blushing a little. That's the second time he held me like that, it felt really nice though. Hey, the police are here. One student said. For the rest of the day, classes resumed as normal. In class, they were deciding on the other class officers. Later that afternoon, Izuku was being dragged against his will by the 3 girls to Wookiees again. Not that he didn't mind, he really enjoyed hanging out with the Ichako, Kayaka, and Momo. But to Izuku, it looked a little awkward just being the only guy in a group. He didn't know what to do or say at times because the girls were being, well, girly. Kitsuki wasn't able to join him because of a little brown-haired girl by the name of Bakugo Hanabi, Kitsuki's younger sister. "Suck it up, Mopi," Kayaka said. "We needed a chaperone, remember? Why couldn't Bakahatsu just bring Hanabi along with him, then we'd all be having fun," Izuku said. "He can't remember, you do know what Mitsuki-sen would do to Bakugo if that guy ever took Hanabi outside without asking, right?" Kayaka said. Izuku shivered at this, he knew, Bakugo Mitsuki was a scary woman at times, especially when it concerned her precious little girl. "Okay, let's just not talk about that. I should have called Iida when I had the chance. At least Jiro was there with him." Izuku knew her long enough that he was very comfortable around the dark purple-haired girl. But recently, she was avoiding him a little and clinging onto Momo even more than she usually did. Well, all things they were girls, they tended to bond more than they did with their guy friends. "Do I really have friends anymore?" Izuku thought as adjusted the present Mick-themed headset around his neck. "Deku-kun?" Ichako said, noticing her friend's mood. "Are you alright?" Izuku nodded. "Yeah, I'm good, I just feel left out as the only guy here." Ichako smiled. "Cheer up, at least you're not alone, right?" The greenette shrugged. "Being alone isn't that bad, but yeah." Izuku then thought back to his other friend, Sho. When the quartet got to the cafe, they were surprised to see that there weren't that many people today. Only about 3 tables were occupied with 2 people per table. "Hey, that's odd, business is never this low on a weekend," Izuku said, walking up to the counter. "You get used to it, Midoriya-kun," Magnetron said from behind the counter. "Some days are just not your best, you know what I'm saying." Izuku smiled. Yeah, for him, training and improving himself as a hero student was quite the challenge. Even with a healing factor. There were days where he felt like he couldn't do any more, but those were days when he'd be training his stamina's endurance. As they placed and received their orders, the teens then went over to their favorite table by the window. As they sat, Kayaka noticed that Izuku was a little somber. The punk girl sighed internally, she felt little guilty for ignoring her friend, so she decided to actually speak to him. "Why the long face, nerd?" she asked in her usually blunt tone. "Oh, it's nothing," Izuku replied as he took a sip of his coffee. "I was just thinking about Sho." "Oh?" Kayaka said, nodding her head slowly. "Who's Sho?" Ichako asked. Momo also leaned in, the tall girl was also curious about this Sho person, she had heard a little about him from Kayaka, but not enough to piece together a coherent picture. Setting down his cup looking out window, Midoriya let out a sigh. "We used to be a quartet, me, Kaken, Jiro, and another boy named Sho. We were good friends until a year before we started middle school. Sho just called us all over the phone one day and said he couldn't be our friend anymore," Kayaka added. "After that, we never saw or heard from him again." "What was he like?" Momo asked. Izuku smiled. "He was crazy, just like the 3 of us. Some years ago, we see 4 kids playing at a playground park. There were 3 boys and 1 girl. The girl was Jiro Kayaka, she was wearing a white deep dope t-shirt and a pair of denim shorts with a pair of pink tennis shoes. We see Midoriya Izuku, he had on a blue t-shirt with an All Might logo on the back, he was wearing a pair of beige shorts, and he sported a pair of red running shoes. Bakugo Kitsuki was seen wearing a black t-shirt, a pair of dark brown shorts, and a pair of black and red sneakers. We now see the 3rd boy, Sho. He was wearing a light blue t-shirt, a pair of blue denim shorts, a red t-shirt with a similar All Might logo on the front, and on his head was a red, white, and blue All Might themed baseball cap. The cap's bill was shadowing his eyes, and you could barely make out his hair. "Come to think of it," Izuku said as he looked at Kayaka. "None of us ever did see Sho's eyes or hair, right?" Kayaka shook her head. "Beats me, all I know is, that guy never took his hat off once when we were playing around." We see the 4 kids running around and playing on a jungle gym. Kitsuki had climbed to the top and was egging his friends to climb up as well. He always boasted about how he was better than all of them, but they just took that as a challenge. As kids, the 3 were very close, but Sho a bit of a mystery. They didn't know his surname, they had no clue about his parents, and they didn't even know which school he went to. But even still, he was a great friend who loved hanging out with them. Sho was better friends with Izuku more than Kitsuki, I think you know why, and he treated Kayaka like a sister. The quartet always hung out in the afternoon when school was over, and in the summer they were always seen together just playing, having fun, and in general just having good time. And number 3. Extra content and more personal thoughts. Yes, so, the USJ arc will also feature the 1B students, I just love them all, since the characters are just as dynamic as the 1A students. But I noticed one thing, Class B has more girls and more animal-themed quirks than Class A, and also does anyone ship Jiroda and Pony? Or am I the only one? Yeah, I get it if people ship Pony with Kamakiri to Garu, but still. The way I see it, Gon, from Hunter x Hunter, and Izuku could pass off as brothers. And yes, the dynamic between Izuku and Kitsuki in this fic was based off of Gon and Kiryu's friendship. Yes, Kitsuki has a little sister and story, I'll explain more about her character in the next chapter, but I'll give you this. Hanabi is 10 years old and is almost like a young girl version of Bakugo Masaru. Okay, sorry if I cut Midoriya and Kitsuki's fight a little short, but we already know that they're capable fighters. It's also better to keep things short instead of dragging them out. I'm looking your Dragon Ball Z. And speaking of DBZ, I've been watching a lot of Jax Blade's videos on YouTube recently, and if you know who he is, you probably work out once in a while. Because of Jax's training videos and training analysis videos, I've been trying to get into shape and it's really cutting into my writing time, but don't worry about the update schedule, I'll work on it. And someone get this man, Mara from the Provisional License arc, a bed. Amic, based off of Hero Academia. Smash. Just stay here while I take care of Deku. Kitsuki yelled as he made his way to the door. Hey darling, wait. Tenya said. What are you doing? And just what do you plan to do about our child? Tenya added as he pointed to the bomb. We're expecting any day now. Shut up. Kitsuki replied. Like I give a shit. That's horrible. Tenya said. Didn't you tell me you loved me? In the monitor room, Jiru Kayaka and Yayoi Rozu Momo were staring at the screen. Kayaka, doing Kitsuki's voice. Yeah, because your dad's my boss. Momo, doing Tenya's voice. No. You're lying. Kirishima just sweat dropped. Hoi, don't voice over them with weird lines. That's unmanly. Well, that's it guys. Hopefully you enjoyed it. With that, take care.